Okay. It's been a while. How's everybody doing? Well, this is a live feed off the cuff. I haven't done a live feed or a video in a while. I've been very busy, so I haven't had really the time to be able to do them. So I'm just jumping on here to kind of do one now. I kind of got this slapped together. We're going to see how this goes. But some of the things I've been thinking about over the last several weeks, and some of the things we really got to consider as Americans of what's going on in our country right now. Scary, scary times. But let's take a look at some of the things we're considering right now. I'm gonna just go right to what we got going on right now. Of course, as we know, we see here Biden's weak poll numbers, right? Yeah, like as if Biden really had any numbers. I'm sorry, reality is reality, and what people got to realize is that the jig is up. I don't think these politicians realize the jig is up, but the jig is up. I've been like really on the wall, upset with Donald Trump since he walked out of the White House and handed this over to the Democrats. I'm torn with the position of Donald Trump right now. I know a lot of people are still very much in support of Donald Trump. I support that man unwavering with strong faith for 5 years, and I was always I wouldn't say fan, but American who respected him prior to that, pretty much all my life, being from New Jersey and hanging in New York as a kid and everything. I knew of the Trump family, and I always had respect for them. And I really believed in Donald Trump, but, I'm questioning a lot of things to how things turned out in the very end here, and why he handed over our nation to the criminal, corrupt establishment that we elected him to remove and correct. I believe he was in a position where he had the power and ability to be able to actually change things. And in some views of those who agree with me, he cowered down and walked away rather than do what needed to be done. And there was many millions of Americans ready to do what needed to be done. And they were positioned and ready to do it. But like I say, myself included, many right now believe he cowered down and walked away. That may not be the case. We really don't know, because in looking at the situation, and a lot, like I say, I'm torn, because there's a lot of talk and debate about that possibly what happened was, the man realized that everybody who he believed was in his corner was stabbing him in the back. And that's pretty clear, because I know I was there on January 6th when everything hit the fan there with Mike Pence, and really, in truth, we're going to get to that a little bit later, because I had a visit from the FBI, which we'll talk about near, as we go on here anyway. But first, I just want to finish reviewing. This here is falling into polls. He never had any polls, this guy. If they still are believing, and they keep pushing off the media and the narratives that they just want to keep trying to officiate this, that this guy's the president, that there's an election that went on and people actually voted for this guy. And I think right now, anybody who did vote for this guy should have their voters' registration confiscated from them, because they're a freaking idiot and a goddamn disgrace to this country. And I hate to be so blunt about it, but that's the truth. Obviously, if you don't know the history of this nation and your place as an American, you shouldn't be voting. I'm just sorry. People should have to take some kind of civics test or something to get a voter's registration to make sure they understand what the hell they're doing. It's just disgraceful what's happening in this country, and what I've seen in the last 50 years of my life. I just can't, anymore. I'm fed up with it. My grandchildren, my children deserve the freedom and liberty of this nation and what the founding principles were as an American. And in the way things are going in this country right now, we have lost our way greatly. And not so much of that, the true Americans who make up the minority in this nation, or the true Americans are a minority. The majority of these American people right now in this nation are a bunch of ungrateful, undeserving, disgraceful, treasonous scumbag traitors to this country, including that of Republicans and Democrats alike, a bunch of lazy goddamn coward, disgusting Republicans in this country. I'm telling you, it's just at a point right now, shit's got to get done eventually, and it's coming. I know it's coming, and it needs to come. But anyway, we're going to go on here. We look here, some of the things going on since this fake banana republic of a government is taking over through its criminal establishment now, with the Democrats and Republicans complicit alike. We have now, since Biden has been in, this right here speaks of the 10 people who were killed in the mass shooting at the grocery store in Colorado by a Muslim. Okay? I'm pretty sure, it doesn't seem anybody wants to be talking about these things, but I haven't forgot about these things. Here's what we know about the Boulder, Colorado mass shooter. This is the guy right here. He's a Muslim. This would be the first, not the first, it's just that we haven't been told. There has been, since Biden's been in, other attacks that have taken place on terrorist bases of which have been considered muggings or domestic violence or assault and battery, where Muslims across this country in heavy populated areas of them have been pretty much brutalizing Americans and Christians throughout multiple states, but nobody's talking about this. And it's going on in like Dearborn, Michigan, upstate New York, some parts in East Orange, New Jersey area, Pennsylvania area, out in Ohio right now. There's issues going on, and the Muslims are pretty much feeling like they got free run again now that they got the Democrats in control. Because as we know, the Democrats, the treasonous, no good scumbag traitors of the Democratic Party, are allied with the totalitarian Islamic Muslims, who, if you watch my previous videos, you know, and as the history videos I've explained have shown, these have been long established, declared enemies of the American people. And in my opinion, the Democrats are literally complicit in aiding and assisting the enemies of America to be able to come into our country, not only come into our country, but infiltrate our government. And in the infiltration of our government and the powers that the Democratic Party has been bestowing upon them in their complicit treason with them, has been giving them the feeling that they have the right to go ahead and do whatever they want, including kill Americans, which right now has been on the rise since Joe Biden has stepped in. We haven't seen these things under the 4 years of Trump's administration, because pretty much the Islamic States and the Muslims understood that if they did these things under Trump, there would be great repercussions that Trump wasn't going to tolerate this, and the American people, they knew the American people under Trump would have the right to do something about it, and they probably would have. So clearly for 4 years under Trump they stayed under the radar, but now obviously with the Democrats in power, they're rising again. We also see we had the Nation of Islam guy go ahead and killed two D.C. Police officers on his storming of the Capitol in Washington. And then all these things as well, the Democrats are now on their rant about gun control, as if gun control does anything. It's amazing. You know, it's just amazing. We're gonna talk about this more at the end of when I go through this routine here of what we're talking about and what the gist is. But just so you're aware, it was again, this was a Nation of Islam, Islamic Muslim, who killed the two officers in Washington, D.C. And with both of these, as we know, the Democrats are who are allied with the Muslims, but yet they want to blame the entire nation of Americans, while it's their allies who they let in this country and who are in their Democratic Party who are the ones that did these murders, okay? The mass shooting and the attack on the Capitol was done by Democrats, Democrat allies, and who the Democrats are right now letting into this country. Biden finally calls the migrant surge at the border a crisis, like nobody knew this, right? It's amazing, though, how I can remember, all these so-called liberal, bleeding heart, no-good, idiot, disgraceful goddamn Americans that call themselves Democrats. You're a treasonous bunch of goddamn idiots, you know that? When Trump was in, they talked about the border crisis and how the thing was going on, and, the camps that the poor this and that was in and everything. But yet, let's take a look at some of the things going on here under the Biden administration, of what's the horrible, horrible conditions that are now being reported, of what, and this is what I'm saying. This is not so much even to say it, because there's really no other way to deal with the situation of what's going on. But I just want to play this.
Tonight, a first look inside this severely overcrowded tent facility on the southern border. The Biden administration not allowing journalists in, but these pictures taken over the weekend and released by Democratic Congress.
Note that they won't let the journalists in, right? You know why? Because these conditions are worse than when it was Obama and worse than when the thing was going on with Trump. Because Biden has literally given a free will open to the borders, and we have atrocities taking place right now with human trafficking, drugs flowing in like crazy, illegal immigrants storming the border, overwhelming border patrol, and in the border cities and states right now, the people, the Americans, are totally deprived of their peace, tranquility, and security and protection of the law because of this no-good, disgusting idiot we got in this White House, Joe Biden, and this stupid administration of a bunch of no-good, treasonous scumbags. But this is the situation we're facing.
Congressman Henry Cuellar show migrants, many of them unaccompanied minors, on the floor in cramped pods built to hold no more than 260 people. Instead, one housing more than 400 boys. The White House says they're working as quickly as possible to move these kids into shelters and homes, but the administration still refuses to call the situation a crisis.
This is ridiculous. And I'm telling you, it's at the state where, too, this guy is such an idiot, and the whole administration, and Harris as well, is just, what we see going on in this country, what I'm watching, I'll tell you, is unprecedented. I'm 56 years old, and you know what? I can't believe what's going on. I can't believe. I remember being a kid shining shoes in New York City, hearing about events of like the idiocy of other countries and their false banana republics. And here in America, listening to Americans, how assured we were that this would never happen here in America, but obviously it's happening right now. How many times I've heard about with terrorist attacks happening with these Islamic totalitarian Muslims killing people all around the world, and Americans back when I was a young kid shining shoes in New York City and Newark talking about you'll never see that happen here. I can remember, the pride of America, the true greatness of America, which it still exists. It's just right now we're allowing this disgraceful, treasonous, no good, disgusting, ungrateful, undeserving, worthless goddamn scumbags who we call our government to destroy this country, and nobody's doing nothing about it because the majority of the Republicans across this country are nothing but a bunch of business people who are freaking cowards, disgraceful, goddamn, disgusting cowards who would go to their knees and pretty much kiss the ass of anyone who comes in here and threatens them. They got no balls whatsoever. But there's a minority of true Americans that are, believe me, a massive army, way greater than that of anything. I'll tell you what, right now, what makes up the entire military of the United States in all branches of Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force even, okay, and including the National Guard, all state police, sheriffs across the country, and all police departments combined, makes up about an army, if they were all to be inclusive in treason against the American people and actually take sides with this disgusting, disgraceful, corrupt government we have in this country. If all of them were to take sides, they would have a military position of a force of 1.2 million people. That's it. So this is what I'm saying right now. To the 33 state militia heads across this country, I'm speaking to you straight out. To all those militia heads that have been well aware for now over a decade, actually since 2008, of which I know of, okay, of what these issues and matters have been being deeply considered since 2008, when we realized that Democrats themselves have literally overstepped the line in their treason and has actually started aiding and assisting enemies of the United States, long established and declared enemies of the United States, to be able to come into our country and actually take up government positions with our own government by use of the Democratic Party's own platform. We realized we needed to do something then. It has been now. We're talking almost a decade and a half. Okay? We have now, since 1993, near 5,000 Americans killed right here on our own American home ground. Do you realize that's more than some of the wars we fought? Okay? I mean, when you talk like Desert Storm, there are 5,000 Americans killed right here on home ground by that of known and long-established declared enemies through that of the Democratic parties, aiding and assisting these enemies, killed right here on our own home ground. Innocent Americans, unarmed Americans, murdered, slaughtered right here on our American home ground by that of Islamic Muslims that the Democrats have been willfully and wantonly letting into our nation, knowingly aiding and assisting these people, knowing they were totalitarian enemies of the United States and have been since this nation was founded. Okay? And you know what? And we look at the abuse, okay? I'm going to say, when we talk about the issues, we're going to get to that in a little bit, though, about the police and the issues going on right now, but I just want to keep going so we can touch base on everything. Right here are some of the things we have to consider that nobody's paying attention to because we have all these distractions from these idiots in this government and the news and the talking heads. But right now, most may not be aware, but we have China aiming for Siberia. And, the Democrats don't like Russia. But one thing I got to say, I don't agree with Russia's communist form of government because, I'm a republic kind of guy. I believe in the constitutional republic of the free people of the United States of America. That's my thing. But I also know this. When I look at time and what has changed and who we are and who our world alliances have always been with, Russia. In the Revolutionary War, Russia was allied with America, the American people. In the Civil War, Russia was allied with the United States of America, the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America, the Union of the American people. Okay, in World War I, Russia was allied with Americans. Okay, in World War II, Russia was allied with Americans. Okay, now we may differ in the political ideology of that of communism versus that of our constitutional free capitalist nation form of government of a self-governing people. But one thing we are aligned on and why we've always been allied is nationalism. And when you see Russia being attacked by China right now, because China is literally threatening Russia, okay, that they want Siberia and they want to expand China into Siberia. And pretty much you have Putin is kind of like you know, right now, the state of the world, this is something I'm going to say right now, I don't know how many really we can trust anymore in our own military. Because I'm going to tell you what's coming down the pipe right now, and I'm going to say this, and I don't care, some people may get offended, but some of our higher up commands in our military within all branches are a bunch of scumbag, treasonous scumbag bastards themselves who are sucking up because, you know what, they're freaking cowards, okay? They're cowards. And right now, within this country, too, many of the heads within the police departments, of the sheriff's departments, the state police departments, the FBI, the CIA, all this government, with all this shit show going on with these Democrats over the shit from January 6th, is just disgraceful. And like I said, we're going to talk about that a little further ahead because I had a little visit from 2 wannabe FBI sheriff people. We'll talk about that later as it gets to that. But the situation, like I say, is at a point, it's just disgraceful. And, you know, but we're going to go on. As you can tell, I'm in a ranting mood. This is going to be a long video because I got a lot to say. I haven't said a lot in a while. And I've been thinking about a lot of these things I just want to touch on. Maybe you're not aware that right now China has been threatening and kind of pushing up on Russia that they want to overtake Siberia, to expand China into Siberia. This is an issue going on. It's very, very tense right now. As well, we also had the issues of, we know, the previous bombings on what took place in Syria. With Biden, and you know, they tried to push this off as a strength issue by Biden, but really, in truth, it was an Islamic movement that was taking place over in Syria that was in the best interest of us, and actually, you know, people don't want to talk about these things, and it sounds kind of crazy, but in the protection of al-Assad and his relations with Russia, that of an attempted Islamic push to overthrow him. Which would have probably made things a lot worse. Being the Democrats are in, we're seeing a lot of these pushes going right now with totalitarian dictators around the world now feeling more empowered under the Democrats being in control in America, because pretty much the Democratic administration is nothing but a treasonous goddamn enemy within, as they've always been in the United States of America. These people are not Americans, never were Americans, and the whole Democratic Party, in my opinion, needs to be removed from this government and removed out of this nation, and anyone who supports that no-good socialist communist goddamn platform should be thrown out of the country as well, of which we're going to touch as we get into that point as we move forward. But anyway, right here we also have the issue right now, the mob and Trump supporters seize Capitol in stunning attack on democracy. Oh my God. Number one, like I say, if you watch my videos and you know, I will challenge any historian, any government official, any media talking head. You show me where in the Constitution, that the United States Constitution or anywhere in the founding history of this nation references America as a democracy. Because if I know for a fact that the United States Constitution, what I call Article 4.4, Section 4.4, states that only a Republican form of government is authorized by the Constitution in the United States of America, not a democracy. If you read the Federalist Papers, okay, you would understand that our founders did not want a democracy. They make that very clear in Federalist Paper number 10, okay? You can see it very clearly that they distinguish between what a republic is and what a democracy is, and how America is not and does not want to be a democracy. This attempted brainwashing by the social media, the news outlets, and these complicit, no good, disgusting, even Republicans, because I see the Republican elected officials themselves referring to America as a democracy, which shows the ignorance and the lacking in their own ability of the understanding of American true history and our true founding principles and values. It's disgusting what is going on in this country with the people we are entrusting. These people are freaking idiots. You want to know what the problem is? The people we're electing, who are in our government, both Democrat and Republican, are freaking idiots. They don't know nothing, okay? And they shouldn't be in there. And the cops as well are freaking idiots, okay? These people take an oath to a constitution they never even read. It's disgraceful. This disgusting. I've had it. I've had it. And I'm going to tell you what right now, what I was just recently saying. 1.2 million people is what you would have in total government control if all the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Army, and all the police force within the United States was to go treason crazy and side with this disgusting, disgraceful Democratic establishment against the American people. They would have an army of 1.2 million. Well, I can assure you and guarantee you, I know this to be a fact. Within 33 state militias right now, the Patriot movements across this country, what is established in the last 15 years is an army of 4.8 million Americans. Okay, and that 4.8 million Americans, I'm one part of them. I'm fed up just like they all are, and we're fed up. We're really freaking fed up. We've had it. You know, and I'm going to tell you what, the bullshit that's going on with the media, the law enforcement and their complicity, everybody's complicity in government in this is just disgusting. It's a banana republic right now. It's a bunch of treasonous, no good scumbags of a bunch of elitist authority, drunken, power drunk, goddamn idiots running this country, and pretty much out there right now enforcing the laws in this country and doing their it's just a disgrace, especially with the police department. You know, but we're going to get to that. I'm getting off track a little bit here, but let's just take a quick. My question I want to know is this right here. Now, this is about the source that happened with the Air Force veteran who was shot and killed in the Capitol on January 6th. Okay? And I don't know if everybody's aware, they've been paying attention, but no charges for police officer in Capitol riot shooting death of Air Force veteran. Really? Really? Let me tell you something. In this video right here, what I see, I'm going to tell you something right now. I was in Washington January 6th, and I'm going to tell you what, they weren't insurrectionists. They were goddamn Americans who were fed up. Okay? And there's a lot that's not being told by the news media of what we're going to touch on here because people aren't aware. Listen, there was not just a movement by Americans in the capital, Washington, D.C. On January 6th, there was a movement across this country. In many states, there was the state militias and patriot movements of Americans who had actually seized the capitals of the states across this country. Those Americans who couldn't be in D.C. They were ready in position to take a position to overthrow this corrupt, treasonous, goddamn corrupt, criminal establishment of a government we have. Okay? People have had it. They were Americans. When I was in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, okay, I see nothing but veteran hats, a sea of veteran hats. Those are the true men and women who fought and defend this goddamn country. You ass-sitter, no good, worthless, disgraceful government are not the people who sustain this nation. Those people who are in Washington that you call insurrectionists, riotous, okay, terrorists, they're the Americans who defend this goddamn nation. Okay, not you. You bunch of ass-sitter, worthless, no good, ignorant scumbags is what you all are. Okay, and I'm sick of hearing you call those men and those women who were in Washington that day insurrectionists and terrorists. Okay, you kiss my American ass. You hear me? You kiss my American ass. And you can kiss all 4.7 million American asses that are behind me with it, okay? Because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it, and I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to let you know something right now that's coming down the pike. There is an American establishment that right now of true Americans that are evaluating this situation. There have been being conducted secret indictments by this establishment. Okay, and they're using 24 persons jury for the secret indictments. And where these indictments are right now, so you're aware, and I'm going to put this out, and I've been told I can say this because you know what? It's been going on now for more than several years, actually 7 years. And where we've been reviewing very deeply all the people within the state government departments, local county government departments within the states across this country who have been the complicit problems that have been complicit in taking foreign Saudi Arabia and Iranian money from these Muslims and everything in their little aids within the departments of education, the Department of Social Service, Child Protective Services, within all these counties across the country and all the states. We've been really digging really hard and trying, and also too the colleges, the deans at the colleges and the directors of the departments of education with private and public schools, okay, who have been complicit in taking the money and the treasonous acts that they've been committing that have really been the result of what we see going on in this country right now. Let me tell you something. In those secret indictments that are being passed down, those indictments are for treason. Treason, high crimes of treason, aiding and assisting the enemies knowingly out of your greed and corruption. And the penalty for it is death. The penalty for it is death. And many right now of these indictments are being placed right now on many. Matter of fact, not this video or my next video, because my next video is going to be on history. But I have a list of names coming of some, which is a massive list. It's amazing. It's a massive list. It includes thousands of names of people who have already been indicted for treason and corruption across this country within multiple states, multiple counties, and multiple levels of government from, like I say, city, county, state, and federal, that are being indicted. And believe me, shit's going to hit the fan. And all you treasonous, no good, scumbag, little worthless cowards are going to be held accountable because this shit is coming. You keep playing the games. You keep pushing the envelope. Because you know, it's so hilarious when you don't even realize how many of your own people are not even with you. They're just there to make sure we know what's going on. You're going to find this out. And I could say this. I could say this because I've been told. Don't let them know. That's what I've been told. Let them know. This is what I'm hearing. So, you know, like the Democrats say, whistleblowers, I can't say who. But, you know, and like I say, they're anonymous sources, too. The way, there's never a face-to-face contact. There's no, the information just flows like through anonymous sources. So I couldn't even tell you who it was told me that, just so you're aware. Okay, but anyway, we're going to go on here. Like I say here, now in this video, my problem with the Air Force veteran who was killed in Washington, D.C., there was literally near 1 million people in Washington that day. Not one cop had to draw a gun and shoot anybody. And let me tell you something right out that the news, you the media, you talking head, no good scumbag, treasonous, no good, worthless piece of shits, that's what you all are. You sit there and you talk about insurrectionists and rioters. Let me tell you something. If the American people on that day really wanted to cause hell and havoc, they could have done it, and there wouldn't have been a goddamn thing anybody could have done about it. Okay, those police had no position of power or numbers to deal with what was going on. If they wanted to do damage, there would have been a lot of damage done. Now, the idiots who did do damage, the idiots who went in and were breaking things and stealing things or causing, just doing their photo ops or whatever, this idiocy with their costumes and shit, they were not anything to do with the real Americans who were angry that day. Those people were with Antifa, Black Lives Matter. Matter of fact, like I told the FBI guy, or the wannabe FBI lady and guy who came to see me just last week. We'll get to that too. We'll finish that up because there's some things I want to talk about on that and how disgraceful in a sense that is. But anyway, when I was there, most weren't aware that there was Black Lives Matter and Antifa people trying to recruit, create like an alliance. And this went on not just in Washington, D.C., but was going on in various states and too, where Antifa was trying to reach out for an alliance with patriot groups. They were actually trying to reach out with Trumpers to try, like what they call Trumpers, to try and form some kind of alliance, to see if there could be some kind of alliance. And they were in Washington, and they were the ones who were actually inciting and going in and doing all this idiocy, and they were the ones as well who were over the agenda, what you can see by several videos, and where Trump supporters and actual true Americans, not even that they were Trump supporters, were pointing out to the DC cops, hey, look what these people are saying, look what they're doing, why don't you do something about that? And they didn't want to do nothing about it, okay? So, you know, but I'm going to say to you something. In the wake of that, you know, you talk about insurrectionists, you say rioters. Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you, everybody there, for the majority, were veterans. They were former police officers that were good constitutional police officers, not these low-life, disgusting, no-good, treasonous scumbags we got today in the police force, because things have changed. Let me tell you something. All the old-school LEO, it's not the same LEO anymore. Right now, you got a bunch of goddamn idiots that are becoming cops. Not to say it at all. There are some good law enforcement. I'm not saying all, but I'm going to tell you what. It's the numbers right now are getting real scary about how many clearly complicit, treasonous scumbag like jackboots there are that are cops within the state, the sheriff's department, the local police department. How many of these people are just complicit with that of the treasonous, tyrannical government we see right now that's running this country in the banana republic we really are. It's just scary right now. Well, it's not really scary because we can deal with it, but it's far beyond what we were thinking of just how corrupt it is. Okay, we'll just put it that way. When you look at the situation here, not one cop had to shoot anybody that day. And let me tell you something. Like I say, if you want to know havoc, there was nothing stopping those patriots from knocking those cops down and taking their guns. If they wanted to really do harm and murder people and be the terrorist freaking rioters you claim, or this freaking talking media heads talking about, there was nothing stopping them. They could have done it. They could have took that Capitol. They could have took everything that day because there was near 1 million people there. And there wasn't a goddamn thing anybody could have done about it. And let me tell you something. It wasn't Donald Trump's fault. It was Mike Pence's fault. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Mike Pence had the option where he could have said, you know what? And I'm going to say this, and any logical, reasonable person, I think, would agree with me. In the state of the situation of what still exists in this country, this nation was so divided that it would have been appropriate for Mike Pence to say, look, the nation is literally near 50-50 divided right now in this matter, and 50% of this nation has no faith or trust in this election whatsoever. And at this point right here, if it is the true intent of the American people to have the election in the favor of what it seemed to have fallen, it will fall the same way in a re-election if we hand this off to the Senate. And he could have handed this off to the Senate. Now, the process would have been simple. And I know a lot of the legal, no-good, jerk-off lawyers out there want to say, oh, well, you know, there's a legal process and there's blah, blah, blah. Look, you kiss my American ass, okay? I'm not a goddamn idiot. And I'm going to tell you what, the process is pretty clear, and the founders put it in there for a reason. Mike Pence could have done it. Nobody could have done a goddamn thing about it. And here's how it would have went. The Senate would have handed this would have went back to where the representatives of each state then would have gone and polled their own districts. They would have taken that of the opinions of their public, the opinion of their voters of each district, and handed that off to the states and to the senators. The states would have accumulated what the state itself wanted to do in its vote, handed that position off to the senators, 2 senators per state. Those senators would have carried that to Washington, and they would have voted as what the majority of that of their districts of their state wanted them to vote, be it Trump or Biden. And there would have been a re-election. And that under the scrutiny of all the people within all the states right now dealing with their representatives and senators, we would have not been able to question anything. It would have been what it is. We'd have known the integrity of it. We would have had to accept the outcome of it. Everybody would have been happy. It would have avoided all this goddamn insanity that's going on in this country. Mike Pence could have done that. And let me tell you something, that was being debated for months, near 2 months, many in depth for the last several weeks before January 6th arose, that this would be the proper thing for Mike Pence to do. But there was a lot of skepticism, and even if you go back to my Facebook page, the night that Donald Trump picked that no-good treasonous scumbag rhino Mike Pence, okay, I knew that night, and I said, this guy's a treasonous, no-good scumbag, treasonous traitor. He's a goddamn rhino. I said it that night. And I'll say it again. He's a scumbag traitor. He's a freaking rhino. He's nothing but a bush puppet. You listen to the guy talk, you think he must have sat home in a mirror. He's probably, I bet you went to the guy's house, he's got little dolls of freaking George Bush Jr. The way he talks, he acts so much, and then not to mention, everybody seems to forget. I didn't forget. You know, when he was running in politics back before any of this time, people that knew him from high school came out and said he was a Klan member. I remember that. It got washed away real quick because you know what? The powers to be wanted him in Indiana. They wanted him to be who he was because he was a complicit, no-good scumbag traitor to this country. He's a true Democrat. He tries to play a godly man, but let me tell you something. There's no godly in that man. He's a fake. He's a goddamn no-good treasonous scumbag traitor to this country. And you know it, Mike Pence. You're a piece of shit. Okay? I don't give a damn. You're a piece of shit. But anyway, back to this incident. This girl had her hands were up like this. Her hands were up like this. You can see this in the video right here. This is a video shot of her going up into that window.
Bust it down!
Right there, she got shot. Her hands were like this, open, like in reaching in. The officer could see she had no weapon. She had no threat to anybody besides coming through that window. She was not doing any crime that was worthy of being shot, executed on the spot by the scumbag who shot her. But yet, no charges. No charges are being filed on this scumbag. I want to know who he is. I want to ask you, of all the veterans in this country who put your goddamn life on the line for this country, do you understand? This is the way our Capitol Police, our government has treated one of you. And I'm upset about that. I'm going to tell you something. I'm 56 years old, and I've known many veterans. I'm talking thousands in Florida. I've had the great privilege of meeting so many veterans from World War II, the Vietnam War, all wars of our country within my lifespan. Okay? I've met Holocaust survivors. But the most honorable thing was hearing the stories of these men. Hearing the valor and why they did what they did. Especially men who were in the Vietnam War that I know and still know some to this day. Some who are literally not blood, but I'll tell you what, are more family than some of my own family to me. And I have such great honor and respect for them. Uncle Rick, you know who you are. Okay? Because of who they were. Men like him, who I'm speaking of, is a Vietnam veteran I know. He was not drafted. No, he went willingly. He went willingly. And when I hear the man's story and I talk to the man and he tells me why, you know, you got to respect that man. That's a true American. That's a 100% unquestionable, real freaking American. And he has a story behind his basis to why he did, of what I've heard from thousands of World War II veterans that I've met in my lifetime. I've been so blessed to know. Okay, and I'll tell you what, when I was a kid growing up in the city, I had great respect for the police officer. We had beat cops back then. And the difference of what has changed, what this generation today don't understand, is that there has been changes that have taken place that are intentional by this government, which all indicate to what the government's direction is in its attempt to eventually reshape America into that of what it's trying to do right now, a socialist, communist, totalitarian government. Okay, it's trying to strip down the founding principles and values of what we established as this nation, of which was the first the world has ever seen. In all world history we know, there's never been a free self-governing nation like the United States of America. We are the first to ever rise, and we're the first to ever stand. And we will be the first to ever fall if we don't get our shit together and stop the insanity we see going on right now. But I'm going to tell you right now, back when I was a kid, the cops that were going to be in the community were from the community they policed. Most people don't even know that the police department actually, it's disgraceful when I think back on the history, that the police department was actually founded as a voluntary thing of citizens who would volunteer to go out and patrol the streets and watch out for crime and protect innocent people who were weak or vulnerable, like women and what have you, walking around in the evening or at night from potential criminals, people of inhumanity that have no freaking humanity in them and really don't care about anybody and just go and take from people what they want because they're no good, disgusting scumbag criminals. Okay? And the volunteers, this is what it was there to protect local businesses and the public. That's what the original, and the police force is not as old as most people think. The idea of a sheriff goes back and a marshal goes back quite a way, of constitutional officers that would be entrusted by the people. Mostly, the sheriff has been around the longest because he was a constitutionally elected person by the people of the community, somebody that would be, that the people trusted. Today, that's not the case, right? When you look at, like, counties right now, we get these sheriffs, they pop up every election season. Nobody even knows who the hell they are. Half of them, like here in Florida, we get guys popping up from out of state to different states. They've only been living in Florida like 1 or 2 years. They don't know shit about Florida, the community, the people in the community, nothing. But yet people like idiots go and elect them. And what they don't even consider in their election of these people is it possible that this guy is just a political pundit who's been sent here, paid for to be transported here, who's literally doing that of a political move to take power in that county. Yeah, this is what people need to start thinking about, because I'm going to tell you what, that's what's been going on. That's what's been going on. Because these people tell you what you want to hear. And it's kind of like it used to be. When I was a kid in Newark, and even in Philadelphia, I used to love going to Washington, like 4th of July celebrations and things like that, when they would be building up and they would have these parades in Washington, D.C. or Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I loved going to these parades. And I used to go a lot, too. I used to take the trains over and spend a lot of time in Philadelphia in the libraries. They had these massive libraries that had great historical facts and like old newspapers that you could read from all the times of the United States forming from 1777 forward, and they had like history records and archives and things of like diaries from people. So I was a nerd. I loved to go read all that stuff, and to get library time, I used to even take place in a lot of the parades and stuff. I used to know a lot of the security guards and people at the Philadelphia Mint and what have you, because I would dress up like Ben Franklin and ride on a float thing and throw wooden nickels out to the kids or whatever, and I would get like an annual pass to the libraries in Philadelphia or Washington, D.C., where I could go in and I could, anytime I wanted, and just sit there for hours and go through the records and the archives and whatever. And I enjoyed that kind of stuff. It was my passion. That's how I know a lot about things. I spent a lot of time doing that as a kid. That was my passion, was history, world history, culture, and knowing I want to know who the hell I was as an American and where my place was in this world for whatever lifetime I'm going to get from Almighty God. So anyway, with that said, though, the police. Now, I knew Harry the Beat Cop. Everybody knew Harry, okay? And the thing of it was, Harry, and like that's the way it was back then, and this is what the posterity now doesn't understand. Back then, the police were actually a part of the community. And, the scary part, which I can even remember in the 70s, before, because it was only in 1970, I can remember everybody having an upset in 1970 about the police commissions thing. There was like this, I even have a little thing on it where it started. It didn't start, there was not a Federation of Police Commission until 1970. I don't know if anybody's aware. That's how new things are, right? If you're not aware. But I remember the people in the major cities getting all upset about this, and they were concerned because this commission and the way the order was going to be, was going to kind of be able to give political establishments authority over policing power. And people in the 70s, when this happened, were really concerned, those who paid attention, those who really cared, those of Americans that really were paying attention and really concerned for the posterity of this country and wanting the right thing. They understood their values. They know their place. Real freaking Americans, not the majority of the goddamn worthless idiots in this country that don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. Because back in the 70s, there was a lot of them. They didn't care. But there was a big minority, that really did care, and they were concerned. And I can remember as shining shoes hearing about these things in the city and in New York and stuff, in New Jersey and even in Philadelphia, the people talking about this, about their concerns about how this new fraternary development of a policing department and organization, and where it's tied now to government, where it's so in depth, how the police could become like a military used by the government against the people. This was their concern back in 1970. I have something, I don't know if I can find it. We'll go back a little bit. Right here, the history of the founding of, let's see if I can find it. I got it somewhere. Some of these things don't pay attention. We're going to get to, the mission of the Police Foundation is to advance policing through innovation and science. It was established in 1970 by a grant from the Ford Foundation, and its works over almost 5 decades has proven to be a catalyst for significant changes in policing over the years. Now, I'm going to tell you what I know, because we all know, they like to write these things, and they like to, make it all sound hunky-dory, but in truth, let me tell you, I remember from the 1970s, it was not that happy, go-go that they write in that article. In 1970s, a lot of people were very concerned about what the authorities of government would be over the policing departments. And today, in this world right now, those concerns are becoming reality, and we're seeing it. There's a lot of good LEO out there within all ranks of sheriff, state police, local, city police, and what have you. But there is also, I believe, the majority, and I see this all the time, the majority are questionable. It's not the old police it used to be. And when you look at the tactics of the policing foundation, of what's now organizes, controls through political establishment of elected government, how they control the policing departments, and the governor controls the state police, and there's no independency or what you would call, like a judge, impartialism, where the police are actually, like the sheriff is supposed to be the constitutional officer. There's nobody supposed to have authority to tell the sheriff what to do. And his job is not so much really on the basis of what it is involved with government or what government tells him. His job is to protect the citizens' constitutional rights and make sure their rights are being administered as they should be by the government. He's actually a local checkpoint, supposed to be, on the government to make sure the government's not overstepping its power and authorities and abusing the rights and the constitutional protections of the American people. But obviously, most of the sheriffs, to be honest with you, they never read the Constitution all the way through. They don't give a shit about it. I've talked to sheriffs myself and realized these people are idiots. They're disgraces. Any sheriff who does not know the Constitution, does not know the history of the sheriff, and understand the Declaration of Independence and the history of this nation, you're a piece of shit. You hear me? You're a piece of shit. And I know a lot of people say you shouldn't talk because, I know, the retaliation, right? If they pull me over, God forbid what they'll do, beat the shit out of me, whatever. Like it hasn't happened before. Like I really give a shit, At this point in life, really, I'm past that bullshit, okay? I really don't care. If you're such a scumbag, no good piece of shit pussy, you would have to take your power and abuse it to get me because you don't like what I'm saying. Well, that just proves my point. You're no good scumbag piece of shit pussy. That's just the facts, okay? Deal with it. Okay, if you're really man enough, you don't like what I'm saying, take the badge off, meet me somewhere. I'm willing. I'll knock the shit out of you. Really, I'm freaking had it with you people. But anyway, back to where we're at. We're at Biden's final calls, migrant surge at border crisis, right? He finally calls it a crisis. This is going on. What bothers me is, I know a lot of, just in life, I've done a lot as an American trying to do the best I could in my part for whatever I could do. I never was in the military. I wanted to be in the military. I tried several times to go in the military. One time when I was younger, I got slammed because I had a heart murmur, and they just health reasons they didn't want to do it. Second time, there's I had an issue with a criminal record that I had for unlawfully concealed weapon of a handgun. That shot it down. Even though I had that expunged to go ahead and back after that deal was over with, I had that record fixed. But that's just the way it went, and I couldn't go. And then two, also health reasons. Then too, they said because of my heart murmur, what have you. But you know what? That didn't stop me from being an American and doing what I could on my own. And that's, I spent a good part of my life doing whatever I could as an American. My kids recall many times being dragged into the courtrooms where I argued with judges and I argued with local officials and what have you, and did whatever I could to try and raise awareness to the abuses taking place for decades. Really, I did. I tell you what, the stress, it literally killed me one time. It literally did kill me. From the stress of it all, dealing with it, and seeing the issues and watching it go on. And I'm sure many Americans remember, you know what I'm talking about, right? Many of the men, the American men, you remember. I mean, I tried to take positions and fight against the issues that went on when they started seizing the people, the men, the working trades, occupational license across this country, which caused a major, I'll tell you what, like 2005, 2004, 2005, 2006, the real estate bubble pop. It was because of this no good, treasonous, overreaching, overbearing, abusive, goddamn worthless government and their greed and power. Both Democrats and Republicans complicit in that time as well. They suspended the occupational license in a move to take power over that of individual businesses, the freedom of the free man and his free trade. Okay, so they could regulate and control. I don't ever agree with it. I'm a state licensed contractor in Florida, but I'm not proud of being a state licensed contractor. As far as I'm concerned, you could stick that license up your ass. You're nothing but a bunch of goddamn dictators is what you are with that shit. Because you know what? When I was a kid in Jersey, I remember my Uncle Fred and a time when they started trying to push for these license back then in the 1970s in New Jersey, and all the guys getting together in 84 Lumber talking about it that were the businesses. And I remember going with my uncle at one time out and watching and listening to the guy come out from the so-called government to tell them why and what they were planning to do and how they were all going to be grandfathered. And it was not to regulate in any way. It was only for the purpose of keeping track of business in each county and knowing the growth of each business in each county and blah, 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 what have you. And the license was going to be free for them and they were going to be grandfathered. There's going to be no requirements, blah, blah, blah. And but eventually too, in reading up the statutes and how they were being drafted, many of these guys weren't idiots. They came back. There was other meetings. And the one meeting I recall, I remember my uncle, because it was my uncle. This is why it was impactful on him. I remember him taking a step forward. He was an outspoken guy, and he had no problem speaking his mind. And he said something to that guy I never forgotten, which I still agree to this day. He said, "There's no reason for government regulation over business in the trades. There's just no reason for a licensing. There's no reason for it because it self-regulates and it self-licenses." He said, "Let me explain something to you." He said, "If you suck at business and you do bad work, people are going to hear about that and you're going to go out of business. You see, that'll regulate you right out of business. If you're good at business and you're honest with people and you have integrity and people know your work is quality and you can be trusted, you're going to prosper in business, you're going to succeed. And that's going to regulate the businesses who are good. And it's going to ensure the public has good business because the public itself will put the bad businesses out and sustain the good businesses on their reputation." That's what my uncle told that man, and that's the truth. That man didn't know what to say to that. And most of the contractors, well, they weren't contractors, and most of the tradesmen then who were builders, because they didn't require it back then to have all these stupid licenses and regulations and what have you with these idiots that are just dictators, he didn't know what to say. And most of the business at the time, which I remember, like Carbone's building, they had, there was many different businesses at the time. I remember Carbone's because I knew them too. They lived down by my aunt's. They were there present during one of the meetings. My uncle came over to their section in Jersey and spoke at. And these guys had no answer to that. They didn't know what to say. And it became clear to them that what they were trying to do was take a position of government power over free men and control them in business. And I'll tell you what, I've watched in the last 50 years as these things have progressed, and I've seen it. I've been victim of it. I've seen it with me and my brother-in-law when we were younger and starting a first business when I was just a teenager, and the effects of the issues we had to go through. And it's disgraceful because the people who take these positions, the people who go into these departments and take the jobs in these departments, they're scumbag traders. Really. I'm sorry. If you work for those regulatory departments, you're a goddamn disgraceful American. You're an American who really didn't take the time to know your position in the country as an American. You don't know the history of this country. You don't understand the principles and values of an American. You're an undeserving, ungrateful piece of shit American. That's what you are. Because you're a part of the problem. Because you know what? Out of your selfish own desires, of your own wanting for power, you will go and suck up to anybody and do anything to your fellow American, obviously just for your own benefit, and you don't give a shit about nobody. That's what you are, a worthless piece of shit American. And I'm sorry, if you don't like it, that's too bad. In America, I do have that right of freedom of speech. My First Amendment still stands, and until the day I die, I'm going to exercise it, and that's my opinion. If you don't like it, too damn bad. You can comment below your opinion if you have an adversity to it. I'll be willing to hear it, and I'll debate it with you any way you want. Bring it. But anyway, you understand what I'm saying to the American man, right? Your families were ripped apart. You lost your homes. How many I seen in 2000? From 2004, 2005, 2006 go, the homes, their marriages fall apart. And you know what the lawyers come into? The lawyers, it was all a government movement with you lawyers. I can't stand you freaking lawyers too. When we look at them, I tell you what, I'm telling you right now, there are millions of men just like me that understand the truth, and we have been watching and we've seen and we evaluated what's going on with the lawyers, with ruining the families' lives, how they played on the fathers with the abusive goddamn child support laws. I watched that. You know, I had to pay. I had no problem. My kids always had health insurance. They were paid. Even though I paid my child support and kept health insurance for my kids, I still dealt with the disgusting, no good, disgraceful, low-life, loser lawyers who do anything. They don't care. These state attorneys don't care about anything real. They don't care about justice. They don't care. All it is about power to them. It's like a goddamn game. Half of them are a bunch of goddamn worthless alcoholics is what they are. A bunch of drunk losers. Really. If it wasn't for the disgraceful abuse of this government and the way the justice system is set up, these son of a bitches wouldn't be qualified to shovel shit at a goddamn horse farm. I'll tell you what, it's just disgraceful what's going on. But these people are the very backbone of the disease in this country. They're the very backbone of the thing destroying the humanity and civility in this country. And they're all complicit in it together with the government. You know, the bar was established back in the early 1900s here in this country. And the bar was something that really breached the Constitution, in my opinion. It created a fraternity between the judges, the state attorneys, and elected officials. It created a fraternity. Because you look right now, when you look at Congress, there's so many in Congress, they're bar-certified attorneys. That's what we have. Right now, you got so many complicit, dumb, idiot Americans think that, you should only elect the politicians and the lawyers. They're stupid, these people. They don't understand. We're supposed to be a government of the people, by the people. But I do get, believe me, our education system has failed, where we do have like a nation full of lemons, idiots, that just go along and they have no idea. But we, as well, as the American people, have to take responsibility that we failed. Okay, we failed in making sure that to keep the checks and the balance that these people were educating that of our posterity properly. We are getting the posterity we allowed. Okay, we failed as well. You know, and I've done all I can. I know I've done all I can, but obviously even I'm not enough of a force, and I'll take my share in the responsibility that I was a part of the failure too, because obviously maybe, I don't know, I should have gave my life, or I should have done something. I've done a lot of crazy things in my life to try and make my point, and what the things I talk about as an American and my responsibility to try and do my part. But I guess maybe I didn't do enough. I don't know if there's something more I could have done, but I'm still willing to do. So let's keep going forward and see where this all results in. But anyway, like I was saying here, when we look at China aiming for Siberia, we also have an issue. I'm just going to get back on track because I was getting off track here. We have the issue right here. Most aren't aware. CCP advisors reveal detailed plan to defeat United States. I don't know if anybody's aware of this. Let me go back to just me so I could show this to you real quick. And you take a look at this. This was in the Epoch Times. You see it? It talks about that story. It's an interesting story because I remember this back in 2014. I remember a little bit of more detail of this. I remember something about a radio interception from Australia informing the United States of that they had recordings of radio transmission of which I guess China was speaking within their country through like internet frequency or whatever, or some kind of frequency, and it got intercepted by Australia, and they were recording the conversations where they literally were talking about how they're going to overthrow the United States of America and make themselves a world dominant power, and how what they needed to do was instigate this of like proxy situations of disturbances with other small nations, and that, you know, it even says in this article, it speaks on about how they wanted to establish 4 constant diversion countries, like the Islamic Muslims, Great Britain's democracy, uprise, Russia, North Korea, and what have you, to always be an issue to keep our government distracted while they go ahead and do their plans for positioning to overthrow the United States. Well, now Russia, like I said too, what we were looking at just prior, Russia realizes it was part of the plan too. They're planning on taking Siberia from them. But just so people understand. So as we go forward here, I'm still talking about with the thing with the girl. I don't want to lose track on that, and I'm going off track. I get it. Like I say, excuse me, I do these things at random. There's no plan to this, except for me getting up the information I know I want to touch on. But this girl was unarmed. Her hands were visible. This cop shot her. She's the only woman who was shot that day, the only person shot that day. Out of near 1 million people, and what's supposed to be the riot of the century, nobody had to be shot but this poor innocent girl with no weapon in her hand and her hands shown. And the guy gets away with it. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. They don't even want to tell us who the guy is. I don't agree with that. And I'm pretty sure I can tell you right now, I know one thing, of the 4.7 million people in 33 state militias I know that are veterans, they don't agree with it either. And it's not going to go. It's not going to go. Believe me, it's not going to go. You're not going to get the hell away with this. This is like what you did to Lavoy Finnegan. You friggin' scumbag shot that man innocent on the side of the road. Okay, killed him, shot him down, ambushed him like a goddamn bunch of thugs, what you are. You're a disgraceful piece of shit, every one of you. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's disgraceful. If the Civil War does come, I don't know how long I'm going to last in that war, but I can guarantee you one thing. I have my own idea of who some of you scumbags are. And if I get the opportunity, believe me, we're going to find out just how American you are. Believe that. But anyway, we move forward here. We got the pro-Trump demonstrators swarm the state capitol across U.S. forcing evacuations in 2 states. This is something that people don't understand. We hear on the news, and this is something I want to touch on. You hear about all this Washington, all the attack, the insurrection on Washington. Let me tell you something. These were not insurrectionists. They are not terrorists. These were Americans. Americans that for the last, like I said, since 1993, 5,000 Americans killed by Islamic Muslims right here on our own home ground. Terrorist attacks taking place like unprecedented ever in the history of our 244 years as a nation. And you know what? Riots, looting, upset, civil divide, social divide with races, you name it. And the insanity with the queers and the goddamn homosexuality and identity issues, all being manufactured and created by who? The government. You know, the government knows it, and it's stupid for me to say this, that they don't want to take responsibility for what really is the cause behind this is them. They're causing all these problems. And they're intentionally doing it. And this is what people don't understand. It's the same thing with the cops. You see, the cops are feeding off of the intentional actions of this tyrannical, treasonous government. Now, the issues that we face right now in America, with all the riots, the looting, the poverty, the crime, the gun issues, all are taking place where? Where? Show me a Republican-dominant county or state where these are a problem. And here's the other thing. Let me tell you something. With the number of guns in this country, I assure you there's no problem with guns. If there was a gun problem, you'd freaking know about it. With as many guns as Americans have, you'd know about it. Okay? But the issue here is being incited, manufactured, and created by the Democrats within their Democratic communities. Because these are the communities where most of it is taking place. Like we've seen when we just reviewed about the 10 people being killed in the supermarket, the 2 cops being killed in D.C. These are by the Democrats' allies, the Islamic Muslims, who have been killing Americans now since 1993 here in America, and since literally 2006, when the Democrats opened their platform to the Islamic Muslims to be able to take up positions in our own government, starting with Ellison, okay, the first Muslim to become a part of the United States government on the Democratic platform, because they've been aiding and assisting these long and established, known and declared enemies of the United States, which is a goddamn fact. Okay, they were declared the enemies of America, the United States of America, and the American people within the first 4 administrations under George Washington, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. They all condemned the Islamic Muslims as the enemies of America and the American people, because the Islamic Muslims have sworn, and it's been their policy for 1,400 years, that it's their goal and mission to overthrow all and any people who refuse to submit to their totalitarian rule. That's just the way it's been for 1,400 years. It hasn't changed. And their methods and practices haven't changed. I mean, I've touched on this before with these people, and it's not the Muslims' fault. The Muslims are nothing but victims of the totalitarian regimes that rule these foreign states with their fake religion and their fake ideology. They enslaved these people and indoctrinate them from the time they're children. They're no different than Hitler with the youth groups back in the 1920s. When people don't realize, when you look at Hitler and you wonder where did the Nazis come from, they came from the Hitler youth groups in the 1920s. This guy raised the army of Nazis. He was indoctrinating, brainwashing these children to be the Nazis since they were children in the 1920 youth groups. People forget about this and they don't tie things together. But that's the reality. And like I say, these people and you know, don't want to tell you, there was a rise that took place of Americans when Mike Pence tried to dodge doing what he should have done, and he did dodge it, and that's why Joe Biden's now president, because you know what, the banana republic we are. What in a way though, one good thing about it is the last several months is one thing we've all realized that we had to wake up to, including me, was that no, we didn't just become a banana republican. It's becoming pretty clear that Donald Trump If they would have understood just how popular Trump was and how much support Trump had, he'd have lost the 2016 election, because they had the ability to rig the elections the same way then. They just didn't do it strong enough because they really didn't believe. They really didn't think that so many people were going to come out and vote for this guy. They were disillusioned in their own ability to see the reality of how fed up the American people were. And the American people showed up in groves, unprecedented numbers. Let me tell you, Donald Trump, even in 2016, won by a greater landslide than anyone could have imagined when you remove the corruption of what the Democrats even had in place at that time, of which they thought was enough to ensure Hillary Clinton a win, which it wasn't. It wasn't. They didn't do enough. But they made sure under Joe Biden they did enough, didn't they? And it exposed a lot. But like I'm saying, we realize now that things were really, and the research and the in-depth digging, and even some of the members that are involved in this, that are with the CIA, older, even some of the retirees who are aiding and assisting and trying to understand the reality of this government and how the abuse is taking place in what departments. People who are retired out of the CIA, the FBI, are helping a great deal and being able to break down. People who had firsthand knowledge were there and see it. It really starts back, believe it or not, with Ronald Reagan. Not Reagan himself, but George Bush Sr. This, and it was going on before that. I mean, we know from back like in the 50s, we were being warned about the communist infiltration here and the Democratic Party's alignment with them. We've known since the very, very beginning that the Democratic Party establishment has always been the enemies within. I know after Lincoln's time, we expected that they would die off and fade away, kind of like many of the other political parties. But through their terrorist tactics, they managed to survive. I'm doing a history thing on that, and when we see, like, we were up in the point with the Ku Klux Klan, the Red Jackets, what have you, and my next history video will be picking up on the 1900s, going into where they really amplify their terrorist tactics and how they sustained themselves in this country as a political party, even though they were enemies of the United States of America. And most of it was due to that of the during the first 40 years after the Civil War, they couldn't do so much because we still had a lot of brassy, ballsy, true Americans that would fight. We had those kind of, Cassius Marcellus Clay kind of, Americans that would fight. And the Democrats were on equal ground, and most of the Democrats were cowards. They really wouldn't take a stand against fighting men, and the Republicans weren't playing games. They knew that. So, but when you get up into the 1900s and the late 1800s, you get to a complicit of Republicans across the country who are business-minded, educated people, not so much hand-to-hand combat fighting kind of people, and they're cowards. And and the Democrats capitalized on that ability to incite fear and terrorism on them and threaten them to get them to be complicit. They also terrorized and threatened and literally pushed very hard on the black Americans now that they were free to vote Democrat or not vote at all, to stack the odds for them in the favor of trying to get themselves to maintain a position as a political party in this country. So everything they have done has been done on immoral, disgraceful grounds. It's just, and that's all they've ever done, and that's all these people are. You see it today, look at the platform of these people. It's just disgraceful who they are. It's even more disgraceful that we, the American people, are sitting back and allowing this insanity to go on as we are. That's even more disgraceful. But my point here was to make out the point that Trump supporters take protests to state houses across the U.S. It wasn't just in Washington. And it wasn't just Trump supporters. It was Americans. Okay? Let's stop calling them Trump supporters. Trump was president for 4 years. Trump emerged on it in 2016. These people, as you can see by the age of most of them, will fall within the age bracket of me, between the ages of probably like 38 to 55, 56 and up. Okay? Trump wasn't around when their Americanism was born and instilled in them. I can tell you right now, they're not Trumpers, they're Americans. Okay? They're veterans, they're former military of all different branches, they're former law enforcement, when law enforcement was actually really Americans who gave a shit, not these worthless, no good, power drunk, disgraceful goddamn Americans we got in law enforcement today. Not all of you, the ones you know who you are. You know who you are, and you understand I'm not talking about all of you. I know there's a lot of good LEO out there, a lot of good men and women out there who are putting their life on the line and trying to do the right thing. But as we've seen, like I did that thing a couple of months ago about the guy who did the video about how he would not take orders and violate constitutional rights by his commanders no matter what. because he was former military, and then boom, several weeks later, this guy's on leave, and then boom, he got fired, right? This is what they do to good cops. They fire them. Because if you're not on board with being the Gestapo with this treasonous scumbag government, you're not going to be on the force for long. So right now, you have a position where a lot of these cops are doing what they're doing out of fear because they have no alternative. How are they going to provide for their family? This was the problem where we were talking about recently about the Federation founding in the 70s with the police department, which I remember people in the 70s being upset about. And right now, we are living in the fears of what I'm telling you right now. History is important. And in the 70s, the American people were very concerned about the fraternary establishment of the police order that was taking place, which gave the elected officials in government, like mayors, cities, and what have you, the ability to dictate and control the police departments. They became a part of the government and kind of slipped out of that of being a part of the community. Because for a long time up until this point, the police were a part of like the community. I remember as a kid growing up, like I said, in the city, the cops who patrolled our area were from our area. We knew them. When they were off duty, we seen them in the supermarkets. We seen them in Irvington Center. We seen them walking around with their own family at the park. We knew them. They knew us. They knew who was really the scumbags in our community, and they knew who was the really good people in our community. They were a part of the community. And with the fraternity that took place with the police order, as like right now, I'll give you an example to anybody who knows locally, like you're local with me, you'll notice that if you go to Spring, like I cover 3 counties in my work, I cover Pasco, Pinellas, and Hernando, and driving through these counties, like if I go to Pinellas County, I'll see Pasco police cars. And if I go to Hernando County, I'll see Pasco police cars. I drive around Pasco, I'll see Pinellas police cars or Hernando police cars. And that's because they don't want cops, LEO, sheriff, or any of them living and working in a community that they live in. Because, you see, this way it dehumanizes the people they have to deal with. If you got a cop who doesn't know anybody in Pasco and he lives in Hernando and his neighbors and all are not the people he's seeing while he's at work, he has no humanization with them. He has no understanding of who they are. He doesn't know who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, so in his vision, everybody's the bad guy. There's no community with him. You see, there's no community. So he has no character reference for anybody because these are not the people of his neighborhood. Now, if you made him a cop in Hernando where he lives and he was seeing his neighbors daily and everything, he would have a more civil humanity position with them because these are his neighbors. These are people he personally knows them. You see, then it creates a community. And the government doesn't want that. They don't want that. They want to break that community. They want to create dictators, like jackboots. They want people that, and they learned this because this is how we see in history. That's why it's so important. This is the tactics of totalitarian, socialist, communist dictator regimes. This is what they do. They dehumanize the people in who the authorities they appoint will address. They make sure, like, when you look at, there was things that were going on many times in history. I'll give you an example right now in Nazi Germany. This happened in Nazi Germany. That the Nazis knew of, like, eventually they would have to recruit in that of the Germans, right, the regular common people, and the youth or the posterity was who they focused on, with the jackboots and what have you, and Gestapo, and the school teachers, as we know, they had the book burnings, and they started to indoctrinate the kids with Nazism at a young age, and then these people started moving into the military ranks of the Nazi armies, right? Now, but still, though, some of these kids would not be approached or taken into that position and enlisted until like later in years where they might have been 18, 17, 19 years old. So they had some humanity in them, of civil humanity that had, they knew, like, let's just say Berlin, right, Germany. If you had a big recruitment of enlistment where you recruited in a whole bunch of people from Germany, like Berlin, you couldn't send those teenagers or young men to go slaughter the people of Berlin, because they'd be like, wait, that's my friends, my neighbors, that's my best friend's sister, that's my neighborhood, that's right. They're not going to do it. So they would send those who were recruited out of Berlin to another area in Germany they knew they weren't familiar with, because then they have no connection to the people there. There's no community. There's no no bonding. They're not going to see their best friend or his sister or the best friend, the kid they grew up with all their life, his dad or mother, as being dragged in the street and shot in the head. They're going to see strangers, people they don't know, and people who they're being told that these people are criminal or these people are traitors or these people need to be, these people are, they can lie, they can say whatever they want. They don't know these people, so they don't know. And they'll follow orders and they do what they do. That's what we got going on right now in this country. This is how they're doing it, kind of like Gestapo, like they did with the Nazi Germany. This is what this government's doing right now with the police. Look what they did in Washington, D.C. with stacking the National Guard. That was disgraceful. You do realize that was the first time in American history, in 244 years, ever, that the elected official of our Congress, House, and Senate, of our federal government, literally used American military assets to position to shoot and kill American citizens. You do realize that, right? It's unprecedented in this country. Nobody's paying attention. This is what happened. This is the things we need to pay attention to. But if you want to look at some of the real problems right now, we're going to get to some of the real problems going on in our country. Here, I want to focus on what took place with this idiot right here. This is the new idiot appointed by Joe Biden, speaking to China about the United States. And I just want to see if I go back here. And I want you to listen to what China says to this guy. After listen to
Hong Kong.
This guy here, I want you to listen. This is the disgrace to this country. Okay? Under the Trump administration, we had some strength in our country where the other nations had respect for us. Before I play this, I want to just explain to you why China, and I can't blame China, and I'm sure Trump doesn't blame China. And when we've heard from Trump before, and it's the truth of what many true Americans know, when we're dealing with these foreign totalitarian and communist dictator regimes around the world, who have always been our enemies, and we know that, we just try to find a peaceful coexistence with these people because that's the only way we can coexist with them, right? But the one thing about China, I got to say, is though they're very deceptive in what their practices and what they're doing, and especially their human rights violations and what have you, of course they're masking what they do, but the one thing they will not tolerate is ignorance. Straight up blatant ignorance and foolishness and weakness. They will call it out like so quick, and that's what they're seeing right now in America with the Biden administration, such weakness, disgraceful weakness. And like this idiot right here of the Biden administration, like most Democrats, he goes in there with this scripted role he's going to play, like he thinks the Chinese people are stupid and don't know what the hell's going on, or the American people are stupid. Let me tell you, I understand a lot of the platform and the base of that, the Democrats are freaking idiots, and there is a lot of Republicans who are freaking idiots, no good, disgusting, coward traitors in this country as well. But the majority of the real true Americans, we know the game, dude. We're not buying the bullshit. And this guy right here, really, I tell you what, needs to be bitch slapped. What a disgraceful. Just watch what this fool does.
Concerns with actions by China, including in Xinjiang, Hong Kong, Taiwan, cyber attacks on the United States, economic coercion toward our allies. Each of these actions threaten the rules-based order that maintains global stability.
倒打一把是不行的。
Well, you can't blame this problem on somebody else.
I have to tell you, what I'm hearing is very different from what you described. I'm hearing deep satisfaction that the United States is back, that we're re-engaged with our allies and partners. I'm also hearing deep concern about...
You see now, what this guy's saying right is a freaking lie. It's a lie. Nobody's saying anything this guy is saying. It's a lie. This is all just fabricated. You see, the Democrats are so stupid because they play on the posterity, the youth. They go out and they're able to manipulate these young, dumb kids in our country with their propaganda and bullshit. They actually go on the world stage and make asses of themselves thinking they can play the same kind of game they play on kids with world leaders like China. This guy is lying. China knows he's lying. China knows that everybody around the world greatly respected Donald Trump. And China knows that this guy's full of shit when he's trying to talk about America's back. Everybody in the world right now is in a state of panic and fear. The people of Iran were counting on America to possibly liberate them again. And the very people of the nation he's speaking to, China, were uprising, singing the national anthem and chanting Trump's name right in China himself, and the Chinese officials know this. And they know there was no weakness with Donald Trump, and this guy's a goddamn idiot, an asswipe, okay? A Democratic puppet piece of shit. No good jerk-off is what he is. He's a disgrace to this country, just like all those freaking Democrats are the puppets that whoever is really... Well, we know who's really in charge behind this, believe me. It's none of these people that we're seeing right here. These people are just worthless, complicit, treasonous scumbag, ungrateful, undeserving traitors to this country. Pieces of shit is what these people are. They don't give a damn about any Democrat or Republican American. They're nothing but self-serving, perverted, queer, disgusting, inhumane, evil scumbags is what they are. Believe me, these people are going to deserve what I hope to see come for them. I really hope to see what's coming, and I hope to be a part of it and witness it and see these no good, worthless scumbags get what they deserve, really, because they are deserving of it. This guy here is a worthless piece of shit. But anyway,
About some of
let's
the
listen to
actions
this guy.
your government is taking.
我们把你们想得太好了，我们认为你们会遵守基本的外交礼节。
Well, I think we thought too well of the United States. We thought that the U.S. side will follow the necessary diplomatic protocols.
所以我们刚才必须阐明我们的立场。
So for China, it was necessary that we make our position clear.
我现在讲一句，你们没有资格在中国的面前说你们从实力的地位出发同中国谈话。
So let me say here that in front of the Chinese side, the United States does not have the qualification to say that it wants to speak to China from a position of strength.
Now, that was a very brassy, bold. Let me tell you something. But let me tell you something. That bitch slap was deserving. This guy is so... The Democratic representation that is in this administration is so weak and disgraceful and such liars and complicit game players, like they think this is a goddamn joke. And if you think China didn't see through it, if you think this guy did not see through it, he's seeing right through this asswipe. He's offended. He's offended by it. And I can't blame him for being offended. I'm offended as an American by it. I'm totally offended by it. Because, you know, what this idiot of the Biden administration, what he did was literally make an ass of America and every American. Up there playing his role with his little smirk and his little half smile, talking about his trips to Beijing and Japan and trying to make it like he's somebody important or like he knows important things, like it's a freaking game. These people think it's a joke. It's a joke. And they don't realize these people in China ain't playing. And what they see in this weakness, they see the opportunity for exactly what they're thinking. Let me show you what they're thinking here. Let me go back to this and make this very clear to everybody so you understand what they're thinking. You see that? I don't know if you can see that. Let me make sure it's real clear for you. CCP advisor revealed detailed plan to defeat United States. You see, they're planning a takeover. Mind you, if you read that article, these things were being planned in 2014. The thing that put the brakes on them was Donald Trump. But right now, after having 4-year delay in their plan, they see the Democrats back in, and they're thinking it's time to play ball again. And like I said, when you look back and you realize what I showed you earlier about what they were thinking right here with Russia and taking over Siberia, they're making aggressive moves like you wouldn't believe. They're not playing around. And what you got to realize, for 244 years now, they've been playing this game with the Democrat, Republican, and that of the true American. There's been 3 parties to the sect of the American establishment. The true American people who actually fight and strive to protect, preserve, and maintain the United States as it was founded. That of the true patriot Americans of our military branches who put their life on the line. You know, the real heroes of the sustainability of this nation. And then you have the Republican cowards. And then you have the Democratic dictators and freaking terrorists. Okay? And the world leaders have been relying on the Democrats. The Democrats have been a platform now for the last 160 years of allowing foreign interests to be able to come into our country. They have opened their platform and sold us out, and they've been selling us out for the last 5 decades. Right in front of our face, extremely unbelievably. When we go back to 1934, we see it starts with FDR, with him allowing the first mosque to be built in the United States and allowing the establishment of the Islamic totalitarian regime of the Nation of Islam in America. It was the first time Muslims would be allowed in this country and protected by that of the Democrats as an active of religion, with their ignorance of not realizing that in the totalitarian regime of the Islamic nations, they were never allowed in this country, and they were banned from this country, not on religious principles, but out of political principles, because church and state is one with them. The church of the Islamic State is the Islamic State government. You see, that's what the dumbass Democrat. Well, they know. They know. Trust me. They've been allied. They've been allied with the Muslims ever since the founding of this country. Because prior to the founding of this country, the Muslims were the primary slave provider to those no good racist scumbag Democrats. Okay, that's who they bought all their slaves from, was the Muslims. That's why in 1812 we had to ban the importation of slaves, because the Democrats kept importing more and more slaves. And we stopped that, and that's that was one of the reasons why we had our, when we look at the aggression from the Islamic Muslims in our first war, in 1801, we had our first war with the Islamic Muslims as an independent nation, and again in 1815 we had our second war, and it was all in relation to that of their alliance with the Democrats and pushing on the issues with slavery, because slavery was the primary business for the Islamic states to America, and we are one of their biggest customers on the Democratic side, not the United States, the Democratic side, the treasonous traitors within. But anyway, I'm just trying to make these points. When we look at the disgrace, it doesn't just end, it doesn't just go with this guy. This guy is such a, look at his attitude and understand who this guy's speaking to. And when you realize, when you look at the face of the Chinese here, and the way that this guy here responds,
confident country is
it's just horrible. It's disgraceful. But anyway, too, let's look at our leader, our so-called leader of the nation. Let's look at this guy. You want to talk about a representation of strength or weakness? Let's look at the weakness. This guy can't even make it up the stairs to Air Force One. Look at him. This is disgraceful. And it doesn't end there. Let's go out. Let's listen to this guy. Right here, Joe Biden forgets what he's talking about. An excruciating press conference. This guy hardly does press conferences, and this is why. Unless he's been drugged up to where he's alert, like on cocaine or something, and they really drove him for a week or two rehearsing his thing he's going to do, and they got probably all kind of ear things on him, and probably I would think they might have a wire up the guy's ass. They shock him to kind of like jolt him out of his freaking days out, because this is how bad he's got.
How to get things done in the United States Senate. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to. Anyway, we're going to get a lot done.
And you wonder why China believes it can overthrow our country, right? Who elected this? If you voted for this guy, and let me tell you something. If you voted for this freaking idiot, you are a disgraceful, goddamn worthless American that needs to go take your voter registration card and rip that shit up and throw it away, and don't ever do something stupid like that again. You don't know what the hell you're doing. And you're more of a danger to this country and the posterity of this country than a goddamn asset. Just know your place and take it. Rip your goddamn voter registration up and throw it away. Don't vote again. You're a goddamn idiot. A worthless, disgraceful goddamn idiot if you voted for this goddamn fool. Let's continue on to look just how idiot this guy is. And then just understand, if you voted for him, you must be an idiot. Face reality, okay? Just face the reality.
You don't get far unless you ask. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. Look me over. If you'd like to see help.
Here he's running for president, and he says he's running for the Senate. Just to show you how absent-minded this guy is. I'm just going to go through the roles here. Okay, now this is where he ends the thing where he's talking, and he offers to answer questions, right? Just pay attention.
Thank you. And I'm happy to take questions if that's what I'm supposed to do, Nance, whatever you want me to do.
Boop, they just cut him off. This is hilarious. This is unprecedented. What disgrace in this country that this kind of idiot. I mean, this is like a shit show circus. This is so disgraceful. It's humiliating. It's humiliating. I'm glad I don't have to leave the country and go look at foreign country leaders, because you know what? This guy, I would be embarrassed. I'd be embarrassed to go out of this country right now and face other foreign people, because they must be looking at us like, what asses are you people? But understand, to the world, to the true people of respect for this country, I understand, believe me, that the majority of people in this country clearly are freaking idiots. But not all of us, okay? Not all of us. It's just disgraceful what's going on. Just a horrible, horrible thing. Now, here again, this is really, now understand, this no good, worthless, perverted, sick bastard has been in politics for 47 years, I believe it is. 47 years in the Senate. That's why we need term limits. We really do. And we need to restructure and change some things, because obviously Our founders did not envision what could possibly happen with a two-party system. It was never intended to be a two-party system. It was only supposed to be, as Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution authorizes, a single Republican form of government only. But clearly, for the last 160 years now, we've continued on with this shit show of these treasonous traitors within the Democrats, and this is where we are right now. We need to restructure and get things back in line. We need to just honor, really, we don't need to do anything. We just need to honor the Constitution. The Constitution calls for a Republican form of government only in Article 4, Section 4. It's the only form of government that's authorized in this country. It's the only political establishment that should be allowed in this country. That's simple. If we get rid of the Democrats and the Democratic platform and their ideology, we would get rid of 90% of the problems we're facing in this country right now. And that's a goddamn fact. But this idiot right here, 47 years, this guy has taken the oath to the Constitution. This guy should know, if you're going to be a politician, you're going to be in government, you're going to be making decisions for the American people and what affects the American nation, you should know the history of our country. You should know the founding principles, morals, and values of this country. But this guy doesn't know shit. Look at this.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by God. You know the thing.
Do you know how disgraceful that makes us look to the world? That a man 47 years in our politics and a senator, a guy who's running for president of the United States, doesn't even know the most important part of the history of this nation, the very founding of its Declaration of Independence. This guy can't even recite the values of that, our own Declaration of Independence. It's just, And everybody's forgetting this, as this puppet, this shit show puppet idiot keeps coming out and doing things. I mean, I'm just going to keep going forward here. Let's look at this. While speaking about the Senate filibuster, Biden told reporters that he came to the Senate 120 years ago. I mean, and it's at a point where I just got to know. I understand once in a while people make a blooper, but how many does this guy have to make before we realize this guy is nothing but a deteriorating, senile goddamn puppet with a hand up his ass by somebody just doing as he's told and has no goddamn clue of reality whatsoever? I mean, how much is it going to take before people realize this? And how embarrassing this is to the world? And if you wonder why the Muslims are like, hey, we can attack them, there's nothing going to happen again. And why China's like, you know what? We could take that country over. If you're wondering why they're thinking it, just look at the shit show we got going on, the circus we got going on.
It used to be required for the filibuster, and I had a card on this. I was going to give you the statistics, but you probably know them. That's why I made it a priority my entire career to work closely with you. You probably know them. And that is the Senate 120 years ago. The filibuster that existed just when I came to the United States Senate 120 years ago. And that is that it used to be required.
And understand, this guy, you can see, this is not a joke. It's not a spoof thing that he was trying to do. He literally, he has no clue. He just rambles out numbers. And I'm going to show you. This is the guy who's working on our budget. And he's doing the budget, and he's doing the stimulus packages and the numbers and all. And I just want to go over some of the numbers just to show how, what we need to consider about, Let's just listen to this
They don't know what they're going to do. And a lot of people you have unnecessarily, now we have over 120 million dead from COVID. What people drastically underestimate is the impact.
120 people dead from COVID. 120 million people. This guy's an idiot. He just this guy's doing our budget. He's doing our stimulus packages. Right here, I want you to listen to this guy. Just listen. Right here, this one here, Joe Biden says 200 million people will die by the end of his speech from COVID-19.
If Donald Trump has his way, the complications from COVID-19, which are well beyond what they should be, it's estimated that 200 million people will have died, probably by the time I finish this talk.
If you wonder, at what point do this guy throws these numbers around and he's got such unrealistic reality. And this is the president of the freaking United States, really. This is unbelievable. I just can't believe it. But here, and then he goes to this. This is the guy who makes the decision for a $1.9 trillion. To him, $1.9 trillion could be $14. We don't know, because the way this guy is, I mean, really, what an embarrassment, what a disgrace, and what idiots would have voted for this goddamn fool. You don't hear nothing anymore from these Democrats. You don't hear shit. You know why? Because anybody who voted for that man even as stupid as the Democratic left are, they realize now that they are fucking stupid, okay? They understand now what they did. And that's what I'm saying. You idiots need to go rip up your goddamn voter registration and just stay the hell out of the elections. Let the people who really care about this country and the posterity of this country, our kids and our grandchildren, do what the hell needs to be done in this country. And you freaking idiot, you complicit goddamn limit, no good goddamn stupid fools, stay the hell out of it. Because you're idiots. Disgraceful. And you wonder what the hell's going on. But here too, let's not forget now when we're talking about Biden. Right? The Hunter Biden abuse and corruption of the impact on U.S. government policy and related concerns. When I upload this video over to my YouTube channel, I'll be able to put links to all the things I'm showing you, including this report, which I found incredible, because it pretty much I don't understand how there was an indictment brought down on Joe Biden and his son. I have to read this. I'm like, if I did this with somebody else in the United States, if just me and two guys or a couple of guys got together, and we committed the acts of what was done that these guys did, we would literally be considered an organized crime organization being pursued by the FBI and probably indicted and arrested already. But, it seems like nobody wants to pay attention to that. But here, here's quid pro quo, right? They talked about it with Trump, right? But here's actual video evidence of Joe Biden doing it.
I said, you're not going to get the done. 6 hours. I said, we need 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting money. Well, son of a bitch.
Just so you know, the quid pro quo is forcing a foreign government or enticing a foreign government with that of withholding money or funds or things that they need in exchange for favors from them to do things that possibly could be considered criminal or corrupt. And he's pretty much admitting to doing that right here. I don't know if you're paying attention. Listen.
6 hours. I said, we need 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
You see that? He's admitting. And they put in place somebody who was solid. Meaning they put in place the guy we wanted to help us get away with the crimes we were going to commit that are right here in this report. Right? We have the video evidence of this. And everybody's overlooking this. When you say why, this is where it comes down to why. Why is this so bad? Why is this going on? When it comes down to, right here, the FBI. This should, FBI, Fake Bullshit Incorporated. That's what FBI stands for. Fake Bullshit Incorporated. Let me tell you something. And this goes back, I had just last week, they were wannabe FBI. They weren't really FBI. They called me up and said they were FBI. They were outside my house. They wanted to speak to me. And when I went outside, first words out of my mouth was, you sure hell don't look like FBI. Because I know FBI. I was involved, like I say, with things in the past, a team. We had worked with quite a few FBI agents in multiple states across this country. I many things involved with that of pedophilia and human trafficking. And I was involved in that for a long time, a very long time. Matter of fact, it goes all the way back to the time when I was a young kid. Started with Detective Fletcher out of Monmouth County, New Jersey. And where even as a kid, I was working with them to try and bust human trafficking and pedophilia issues going on within New Jersey as a kid. It started with one case that took place involving the Keyport Police Department, people in the police department with the VFW, about a pedophile network going on where these guys were literally, as cops and people, members of perverts, as pedophiles, drugging kids at the fairgrounds that would take place, the clam bakes take place at Keyport Pier, and then molesting and raping these children inside the VFW building that was off of the Keyport Main Street. And I was working with the detectives and the FBI even then back in New Jersey as a young kid because they knew my position on this. It was a thing that's where it started, and I never stopped. I continued on with that, and I met other people who were advocates for that, and we worked as civilians doing it, never got paid or anything like that. We just did it because it was something that we had a passion for to stop in this country. And I was involved in that for years, and I've met many FBI agents over the years, and I know many people, and I've had the ability to call on some of those people who are actually right now, I still know, and are retired, of which the sheriff, these were loners from the sheriffs working as FBI wannabe, but they were asking me about when I was in Washington, on January 6th, and they pretty much lied. They came and told me that somebody had said to them and told them that I was an organizer of the event that took place, the riots, and entering the building in Washington, which is a goddamn lie. And I know that's a lie, and I think they made it up because, I was wanting to know, like, who did it. I should have a right to confront my accuser, right? They wouldn't give me a name on that anyway, because there was nobody in truth. They're just liars. And that's what I don't like, people liars. And the psychology play on these people as well. They try to play so smart. You can tell they're just excited about, like, feeling like they were being on loan from the FBI, like they were somebody important. I went into a debate with them about the Constitution. They didn't like that. The woman lady, she didn't like that. And what's really, these people were so important to me, I don't remember their names. But I did like the young kid. One thing I could tell about the young guy, I could see something in his eye that he didn't have that looked like she had. I hate to be offensive to her because she said she watches my videos. She's going to see this. No offense to you, but you have that deer in the headlights look of where really it's clear you don't have a clue what the hell's going on. You're out there. You're bliss. Okay, that's probably why they picked you. They're like, just send this one out there. Go watch Donna the deer sign lady. That's who you remind me of. Just so you know, that's who you remind me of. No offense to you, and I know you're going to take it offensive, but I'm just saying the disgracefulness that when I brought up the Constitution, young kid, the guy was willing to talk to me about that. He told me that he felt shameful that he hadn't read the entire Constitution and that he had been reading it. And he would take the time to, and he spoke to me that, and he was very He was humble. He was humble. You were ignorant. And you didn't want to talk about it because I could tell from the door you knew nothing about the Constitution. But here's the point I'm trying to make with you guys who are LEO, sheriff, constitutional officers, whatever. The United States Uniform Service Oath of Office requires you to take an oath to the Constitution. So to you, lady, who was out and seen me last week, playing your little FBI role, you showed me your badge. And this is all I would want to say to you, and of course the young kid, I had more respect for the guy than I did you because he was very humble, and I could tell he seemed to have a more sincere desire to want to be a real American than you did. And I don't know you really enough to be harshly judging you as a person, but from the interaction of the short period, I'm wise enough to know that, you really need to take the time to consider some of the things I'm about to say. When you took that oath and you have that badge, do you know what gives you the authority of that badge? I've asked this to a lot of cops before, a lot of LEO before, and I know the cops that are good, true Americans that know me, we have a mutual respect, a great respect for each other, and with those people, I'm honored to have the respect. Cops such as you, I wouldn't care if I had your respect or not, to be honest with you. But here's the deal. When I ask that to many cops, or this is how I would judge if I like a cop or I don't like a cop, the cop says to me, well, the city gives me that authority to do that badge, or the county gives me the authority to do that, or the state gives me the authority to do that. That's a cop that I know never read the Constitution. That's a cop I know never took the time to understand the history of where the police come from, where the sheriff comes from, and what the founding principles and morals and values of the United States are. That's a cop who simply is a cop because he wants to be a power-drunk, no-good piece of shit tyrant. You see, because a real cop, now I know the difference. Like I said another cop, where's the authority of your badge come from? When that cop looks at me and says, that authority comes from the Constitution. I'm an American. I defend the Constitution. The Constitution is what gives me the authority. That's the oath I take to. That's a cop I respect right there. That's a cop. Boom! Got my respect right there from the door. After, you know what? If I'm talking to a cop and I ask that question, and he says that, every word out of my mouth after that, addressing him as sir, yes sir, no sir, because I have respect for that man. Because I understand that man has respect for me and sees me as an American because he understands my rights. You see? But that one that says the city, the county, the state, I got no respect for them. Really, I got no respect because, how disgraceful of a piece of shit you gotta be. That you go and you take such an important job that literally arms you with lethal force and gives you the right to kill. And the right to, literally, you have the power and authority and right to dismantle a person's life by the actions you're going to take against them. If you lock them up, it has repercussions that will affect their entire life within employment, jobs, customers, you name it. What you do to them and the power you have over the average American by your position as law enforcement gives you great power that should require great discipline, that should require great indulgence into that of the history and the foundation of the morals and values of what gives you that authority. You should be well versed in it. You should know it. and you should know it with such a pride of dignity, and that you're being trusted with it by the American people. You know, because that's the Constitution is what gives you that authority. And you know what? If you look at the first 3 words of that Constitution, they're we the people. That's the first 3 words of the Constitution. We the people. So if you understood the Constitution, you understood where your authority came to you as a policing officer and an LEO, and you understood the Constitution of we the people, you would understand that your true position as law enforcement is not to defend the government, but to prevent the government from being able to do anything that offends the people and deprives the people of their constitutional rights, of which you took an oath to uphold and defend. You are the law of the land. You are the enforcer of the law of the land, and the law of the land is the United States Constitution. That Constitution is the outlaying rules that the government is required to follow as set by we the people. It's we the people who give you your authority. And when you're in contempt of that authority, when you act outside that of our consented to powers that we give you, simply because the government gives you a higher authority over that which we consent to, you become a criminal. You see, and that's what you don't understand. And I'm going to tell you what, 4.7 million Americans have debated this now for over 8 years, and we realize this strongly, that that's the problem. You see, the government itself has hijacked law enforcement into its authority and power, using it as like the Nazi Germany, like Hitler did, as his Gestapo. And now it is literally using assets of military like National Guard, and now even looking to bring in actual army officers to American ground against the American people. Like they're going that far. And it's scary because you know what? It appears some of the higher command of these military branches are going to be complicit with it. And that's a sad, sad situation for America. The hardest and saddest situation of which has to be weighed in all the considerations and things we're taking right now is the vulnerable position it would place us should our higher-ups in the military actually be able to get that of our military assets to take position against the American people in that of like a civil war. Wow. You know, that's something that, 50 years ago would have been unprecedented to even consider or think about in this country. But right now it's a reality we have to face. You know, will our own children follow orders and shoot Americans? You know, when you look at the fact of how deprived down the American posterity has been in education, you know, I have high school friends and things, and kids and people I know that were in the military. Man, they know the Constitution. They know what they were doing there. They know their place as Americans. But you know, I have customers now, and I have people now that have young enlisted family members, and I even have some family members right now that are, I have a nephew that's Navy and what have you, and we have I have family members that are military, and I know they know. But the younger generation, I have customers that have some that are Army Ranger. Young just went in not that long ago, and seeing them on leave at home, and I would start talking to them, and it seems that it's not the same military it was when I talked to an old high school friend and he was in the military. It's scary. Put it that way. It's just scary. And then also with all these immigrants and infiltration of Muslims, very, very scary. Because, these guys are going in our military. I've done videos about this before where we've seen them go rogue and shoot Americans right in our own military. Because to them it's honorable to kill the non-Muslims, infidels, kafar, of which we're considered to be. We've known this since our founding of our country. They declared war against us, and that, their objective, and they're not hiding that objective, to kill us and destroy this country. That's their goal. That's always been their goal. And that's the Democratic Party's goal. That's clear, too, because they caused the Civil War of 1861. It's pretty clear they tried to overthrow us in 1861. They lost that war. They never gave up on that war. That should be clear. Watch my history videos. You'll see. It's pretty clear. And then in the 1900 video history I'm coming to right now, you're going to see how long and hard the Democrats have been continuously trying to redo that war and take this country. And right now, they're really positioning to do that right now. But the people we're seeing in the front lines really, I don't think, are a big part of it. They're just puppets in the play. But back to the oaths here. You got the oaths here of Congress. They all got to take an oath. All these people have to take these oaths. And then, like right here, what is the legal meaning of a sheriff's oath of office? I include links in this. Like I said, when I do this upload to this video onto YouTube, for you LEO that, you know, maybe are listening. I don't care. You think I'm a jerk off, whatever. That's all well and fine. Really, I don't care what you think of me. And you shouldn't really care what I think about you. You're the one who's got to live with who you are. I'm fine with who I am. Trust me, I'm 100% fine with who I am. I'm good. I'm an American. But you know what? I'll include links in case you are interested in maybe looking into some of these things. They might help enlighten you some. But just so you know, too, I'll include the links here to like the Declaration of Independence. And I'll include a link here to the United States Constitution. You might want to read these things. You did take a note to it. As you can see, it's in bolded right there. We the people, the first three words of that United States Constitution, right? Of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish domestic oh boy, I'm sounding like Joe Biden right now. Perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty unto ourselves and our posterity. Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America, right? Now, there's an important part in there I want to mention about right here. That we promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. You see, ourselves. You see, we're not supposed to be out trying to save the world. We're supposed to be trying to save ourselves. Okay? And, you know, you take an oath to this by we the people. Understand the Constitution is like an employee handbook for the government. When you become LEO, sheriff, state police, you become a part of the government. You're subject to the rules that we the people set in this Constitution. Now, this is the problem we have, though, like I said. And this is something that's being observed right now by many former law enforcement, former military, active law enforcement who are ethical, moral people and who adhere to the Constitution and have American principles and values, of which I know, that are involved in all the things going on right now in our country. In the coming future of changes that will be coming about, they're seeing it as well. You see, a lot of these chiefs of police and what have you, they're taking their consented authorities from that of the local elected government. This is the problem in the 1970s when we allowed the fraternary come upon, where we established the police fraternary organizations and allowed the government of the elected officials to have the authority and the powers over that of the budgets to these people and their salaries and the ability to fire or hire them. You see, this gave the government the ability to become tyrannical, and that's what they've done. And now, as well, by lack of education and understanding, these people just take an oath to a Constitution. They're not required to even pass a civics test to see if they understand the Constitution they're taking an oath to. That's a very scary situation, but it's been going on now for decades. And the majority of the cops you will walk up to today, if you were to ask them certain questions about the Constitution, they don't know. I know. I've been doing it for a long time. Trust me, these people are as ignorant as a rock. They have no idea. They just took an oath to it as it was part of a requirement for their job. They don't really give a damn about the Constitution, and that's very, very scary as well. When you realize the power they wield, they have a license to kill. They have a license that can wreck your life. Their authority and power and position of what they do and their actions of arresting you, charging you, can wreck literally your life. And they know this. And they play with it like a game in the abuse of the power, and people know this. And in some areas, like in these cities where we have the problems with the cops shooting kids all the time, it's almost to a level where, you know, now that, like they say, they have this one cop, he's facing life in prison for murder for killing that guy. And, you know, it's a lot of controversy on that whole thing or whatever. And I understand the guy that he killed, Floyd, was a real scumbag. The guy, you know, what he did to that pregnant woman and what have you in his history was not some moral, upstanding person. But the sad part of the reality is that Floyd's not the only one who died. There's, you know, I posted things on there where you had Tepa, this kid at Tepa was another kid that they killed like that. There was another one, I had a video of the guy was a lady's husband right in front of the wife. They penned him down like that and they killed him right in a movie theater parking lot the same way. You know, this is a common thing that's been going on, and it's several times being caught on video. You can only imagine the multiple times that it's not caught on video is taking place across this country and how many innocent people are being killed by the abuse of these people who do these tactics. And when you ask yourself, what does it all come down to and why is it getting this bad? It's because government itself does not want to take accountability. Now, I wouldn't say that in the sense of like the Democrats. The Democrats themselves, I believe 100% know exactly what they're doing. They have always been the enemies within. But the Republicans are just straight up freaking cowards, disgraceful, no good piece of shit, self-serving attorneys who are nothing but worthless ass-sitters that are sitting on high-paid welfare and doing nothing. Nothing. of anything for this country. Nothing for the anything of the good. They're just passing the buck to the next administration and don't give a damn. And I'm sorry, no offense, but like Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, all of you guys, you're nothing but high-paid welfare, failed fucking lawyers that couldn't make it in the real world doing your own business, and no firm wanted you, so you had no choice but to fall back on high-paid welfare as elected officials, and that's what you do. And you do nothing but feed us lip service, because you know what? Little Marguerite Green is standing out there, and she's taking stands against a lot of things like Maxine Waters, what have you. That little girl is ballsy. She sticks up. She says what's on her mind. And I don't see any of you people getting behind her. I don't see you doing a damn thing. I don't see you taking a position like her and speaking your mind. I don't see you learning the history of this country and taking your... Do you know how much content you got to slap these Democrats down? You do realize the Democrats were the founders of the Confederate slave states, right? You do understand they were the ones who caused the Civil War, right? You do understand they founded the Ku Klux Klan, the Red Jackets, right? You do understand that even like the very presidents they claim were the party switch president, like FDR. FDR tried to appoint Hugo Black, you know, Ku Klux Klan member, to the freaking Supreme Court. And then you talk about Lyndon B. Johnson. We do know Trump opened up the file on Lyndon B. Johnson, where we found out that it was fact known by the FBI that Lyndon B. Johnson was in the Ku Klux Klan in freaking Texas, okay? You do recall Bill Clinton trying to defend, you know, Robert Byrd, the longest sitting Democratic Party Klan member and mass recruiter for the Ku Klux Klan, and his time in the Ku Klux Klan. You know, you do have a lot of content where you could shut these people down, but you know why you don't? Because you're freaking cowards. You're worthless, no good piece of shit, ass-sitting attorneys that are cowards. And you don't even know shit what I'm talking about, do you? You're a disgrace. You're no different than these goddamn cops that don't know the Constitution. You're all a bunch of educated, paper-brained assholes is what you are. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it, and I'm telling you, millions of Americans are sick of it. And I'm going to tell you what, you shouldn't play this game. Because in my opinion, my book, of these grand jury indictments going on by citizen panels right now across this country of real true Americans, what's coming for you son of a bitches, you deserve it. Because you shouldn't play games with American lives. You shouldn't sit up there on high-paid welfare. You know what? Had your lazy, worthless, no-good educated, dumb paper brain ass actually done the right thing, and you took a position of real defense right now to do the right thing for this country, be no problem with it. Be no problem. Not everybody's a warrior, not everybody's a fighter. But you know what? Everybody in that position right there, by their authority, has something where they could do something real about it. You just do nothing. The majority of you Republicans are disgraceful, worthless piece of shits that do nothing. Cowards. Disgraceful. And the citizenry as well. The voting base of the Republicans, for the majority, are a bunch of business people. Soft-skinned, worthless cowards. Not all, but the majority. Worthless, soft-skinned cowards. And you know what? The Democrats are playing the same game they've always been playing, where they bring in that of their manufactured. You see the Democratic districts that the Democrats are controlling, like Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, Georgia, the worst areas that you can think of, Newark, New Jersey, Brooklyn, Bronx, what have you, where these Democrats are. They sig those people, like Hillary Clinton called them predators. They manufactured them into being this. They're the very cause of the crime, the drugs, the poverty, the hardship, the domestic violence, the gun violence, and everything. The Democrats are the very cause of the manufacturing of these things so that they can keep these people in the state of what they are, because what they do is they manufacture the problem and then they present themselves as a solution to the problem. Then they use the very problem they manufactured for the agenda of what they're trying to accomplish. Like, for instance, all the gun shooting and violence is going on is happening in areas and states and cities and counties of states with the highest and most strictest of gun laws. What should make clear, gun laws don't work. Because if they work, Chicago should be one of the safest goddamn places in the United States because of all the gun laws they got. Los Angeles should be. It's one of the hardest places in the freaking country to get a gun is in Los Angeles. But yet they got the highest crime with guns. Why? I'll tell you why. You see, because when all this regulation is kind of like the state licensing contracting. You see, it's like everything the government does in your attempt to dictate and legislate and control the American people, infringing upon the freedom of prosperity, the freedom of the pursuit for happiness. Your idiot asses don't even realize your job anymore because all you're trying to do right now is be like foreign dictators. And you don't realize that everything that you infringe upon is causing the problems that we're facing. You're not presenting. Now, had we had God in school like we used to, when you ask yourself why in the 1940s and 50s and 60s could kids drive around with shotguns up in the back window of their cars and go to high school with the guns right in their cars? Why kids could walk around the streets like me? I was 9 years old. 9 years old. My brother gave me my first .32 handgun at 9 years old. Because you know what? In Newark you had pedophiles. I was like 8 years old. Actually, I was like 8 years old because there was pedophiles and there was people that were dangerous. sick people in the city. And you know what? Harry the beat cop knew I carried that gun. He knew I had that gun. There was no problem with it. You know, down the shore area where my Aunt Grace lived and my oldest brother and sister were, there's kids driving around at the high school you went past, they had shotguns up in the back window of all their cars. There was many of them had handguns right in their glove boxes, and they went to school like that. Nobody said a goddamn thing. There was never a problem. You know why? I'll tell you why there was no problem. Because back then, everybody had a gun. And a criminal would only really be looking to go and do something in an area where he knew people didn't have guns. Because you couldn't go, like, if you take, for instance, like, just a hypothetical, let's just say, back in 1970, if you were to go walk into Lawrence Harbor into a bar, it'd be like, this is a stick-up. There was a high chance you'd get shot by everybody in the bar because everybody had a gun. And you knew that, unless you were a totally stupid criminal. You knew that. You know, and like I said this before in videos, when you study criminology and you look back, you realize, like with Bonnie and Clyde, they actually did interview with reporters. And one reporter actually asked Clyde, you know, how do you guys determine, and he admitted, he told the reporter, and the reporter did this as a story on it, where he said that they will go in and kind of, what do they call it, scope out the town, and they'll realize, when they go into town, they realize nobody's carrying a gun, they don't see anybody with rifles, and they got a couple cops with guns, it's like small 3 or 4 cops, and they go in the bank, and there's really only one security guard there, and nobody else they see has a gun. That's the town they're going to rob the bank in, because they know they get the advantage, because they're the bad guys with the gun. And they know the law-abiding citizens counting on the single security guard and a few cops on the street that ain't going to make it there in time to stop them. They're going to be able to get away with it. Okay, and that's the deal. You see, the cops too. You cops. Here's the funny thing about it. Like I watch videos, and I know I'm ranting. I'm just going on here because I think it's important. And what I'm saying is that it's so hard, I guess, to get the point across. I think about these things and I say to myself, why can't people get it? Why can't the cops get it? I don't understand how you as Americans, you're a cop, and you go through all this training and you do all these things, and yet you still don't know what being an American is. You don't get it, I listened to a cop one time in a video, just last week I was watching this video about a cop giving a guy who was walking down the street doing a Second Amendment audit with his gun. He had a handgun on the side and his rifle over his shoulder. And the cops, of course, came in like this guy was Rambo, and here's the thing. Why is that such a wrong thing when you understand you took an oath to the Constitution, the Second Amendment allows that, and you go in and treat a person who's exercising their Second Amendment right as if they're a criminal from the door. You get out of the car drawing your guns on this guy, making this guy act like he's a criminal. Why? Do you not realize that really under all truth, and I'm going to tell you this something, all LEO, I want you to consider this fact. You don't carry a gun by anything of government authority whatsoever. No government has been consented to by the people to give you the authority to carry a gun, because there was no need for it. You know why? Because when cops, even marshals and sheriffs first started, they didn't carry guns because it was part of the job. They didn't have a gun on their side because it was a requirement of the job. Everybody carried a gun because it was the Second Amendment right under the Constitution. And it's the very Second Amendment right under the Constitution that authorizes every cop to open carry his gun. It's only a requirement by the city or municipality that you do that. They don't give you the right to do that. They don't give you the authority to do that. They don't have to. Because by the very same right that every citizen has the right to carry a gun, so do you. That's a fact. That's a fact. Do you know that? You took an oath to the Constitution. If you took time to read the Constitution and study the American history and understand your goddamn place as an American, you would know that. You would know that. And I know that to be a fact. I know that to be a fact. Because I'm going to tell you a true story that was, it's kind of comical. I'm going to share a story with you of which I'm not sure if it was my nephew Billy or my nephew Tommy was there when this happened. And I also remember a cousin of mine. I didn't know him very well, but he was there. I remember I think his name was Tony. He was there, and it was when my brother had a friend named Brown, and I was upset about an incident that happened, and I was only like 8 years old or whatever, but growing up 8 years old in Newark, New Jersey, you're like 20 years old. You got no choice but to grow up, especially back in the time when I was there with the violence and the insanity of what was taking place in the city. I listen to these wimpy ass kids today, they have no clue. But anyway, my brother, I knew, I went to my brother, like I told him I want to buy a gun. I'm going to buy a gun because I was mad about something and I wanted to have a gun. And my brother gave me a whole big spiel about guns, and you know, and then too, my pop Eddie, who's my sister's godfather, I talked to him about it, and you know, I was just a little kid, and you know, I got the spiel about the Second Amendment from my pop and the Constitution, and I got the spiel about it's no joke, and a gun's not, you know, you don't use a gun when you're angry. I got the whole rundown from my brother and everything, but my brother told me that he would get me a gun, and he would give it to me when I proved that I was responsible enough to be able to have that gun. So, you know, and the point I'm making is, like, when I was going to learn to shoot this gun, it was a .32 little handgun that I got from my brother. He got this gun for me. And no joke, Harry the cop actually helped my brother get that gun for me. No joke. And Harry knew it was for me, and they were going to teach me how to shoot the gun. Now, luckily, Harry, I don't know if my brother's idea or Brown's idea or my brother's friend or Harry the cop's idea, but the deal was that, and I knew this too, I would have to shoot the gun with blanks. They were just blank bullets, like, so I could get the feel of the whole thing, but without having a projectile to where I could actually shoot anything. It was like a cap gun, I guess you could say, like, you know, the caps they used to do in the old cap guns. You had the little fake bullets. They, you know, but these were blanks. And luckily, I'll tell you, luckily they were, because, you know, for a little kid, a little .32 handgun, pretty good kick on that gun. And when I had that gun, I'm just going to try and show this on the thing. And I first, as a little kid, I was like 8 years old, and I pulled the trigger. It was like, boom, the gun went like that. And I kept pulling the trigger, boom, boom, boom. And I went right across my brother and Brown, and, you know, and there was bullets in there. I would have probably shot and killed both of them. And that's the God's honest truth. That's how it happened. So I had to shoot the gun with the blanks in the alley until I learned how to control the gun and keep it where I didn't lose control like that. And so, you know, actually it was like every couple of days or like maybe a week or so, whatever. My brother kept the gun. I wasn't allowed to carry it until I had control. But then he would come, and then there was even times I remember, like I say, Harry the cop came in the alley, and I was still shooting blanks, and I remember him showing me his big gun. You know, he had that big .38, you know, revolver. It was like an old revolver, like back then, and nothing like today's guns. But Harry carried a .38 revolver, long nose, you know, and his gun was really big. And I remember he had taken all the bullets out of it and let me hold that gun, and I was like, wow, it was so heavy. I was like, compared to my little .32 handgun that I had that my brother got me, it was like, my gun was like a toy compared to his. But I remember, like, you know, Harry gave me pointers. I was like I say, so you think about it, this was a cop showing an 8-year-old kid how to hold a gun, I remember him explaining to me how you look through the little slit on the back and you line it up with the little nose on the front. That's, you know, he started showing me the sighting, how to get it and keep it level, and how you look down the side and you keep them in line. And he told me, and then how to hold the strength and how to put position my wrist and how to line my other hand to hold underneath the handle and to keep it strong. And then showed me how to squeeze the trigger, not to just click it, but to squeeze it slowly. And as I was squeezing it, to tense my arms to keep a locked position. You know, I remember him teaching me this. It was a cop teaching an 8-year-old kid with his brother how to shoot a gun in an alley in North New Jersey. That's what America once was. That was okay, and that was normal in America. That was not, you know, that was like a common thing going on in the city all the time. There was a common thing going on everywhere. Down the shore area, away from the city, when I first started going down to where my Aunt Grace was and my older brother and sister were, I can remember, like, the Savitsky family. And I was a young kid. I told the lady where Norman Savitsky's son, Stosh, and Stosh probably remembers this. I know he lives down here in Florida now. He might remember this. I was telling him how I knew how to shoot a handgun, but I had a handgun, but I wasn't allowed to keep it down the shore here. I kept it at my brother Bill's house, and that I could shoot the handgun. And I was walking with him to the beach, and he was going to shoot duck hunting, right? And he showed me how to shoot a shotgun. You know, I remember Stosh. I liked Stosh Savitsky. He taught me how to ice skate. He taught me how to shoot a shotgun. He showed me how to, you know, the shore kids made fun of me as a city kid, but You know, because they, like Dougie Zabisky could catch snakes and snapper turtles and stuff. I was a city kid, I had no idea about that stuff. But Stas showed me how to do it so that I wouldn't feel like such like an outsider. And I remember I wound up gaining friendship with Dougie, and we became good friends because Dougie realized I wasn't afraid to grab a snake and a snapper turtle. But he had no idea it was his own brother Stas who was showing me how to do it so I could be so impressive with it. But anyway, that's things I remember from, like I say. But I also remember, like I say, Stas walking down the sidewalk, you know, down the street, with his shotgun over his shoulder through the town, and then even after going duck hunting, dropping the ducks off to Norma to go ahead and pull the pellets and cook the duck that night, which I got some duck on that because I was with him when he shot those ducks. We walked up to Ann's Bakery because he was going to go down the other side by what they call the Cat and the Fiddle to see if he could get some more ducks down that way. So we literally walked all the way through the whole town, him walking through with a shotgun and bullets on his side through this neighborhood like it was nothing. And I can remember the cop, one cop, Dan, come by and seen Stas, and he didn't like stop to ask Stas what the hell you got a gun. He was like, "Hey, how you doing? Did you get any ducks?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I hit a couple up by the, you know, top of Wayside there by Treasure Lake, and I'm heading down to the point." And you know, and the cop telling him, "Oh yeah, down by the point right now, there's a whole bunch flocking around." So you know, and that was it. That's how it used to be in America. People could walk around with. I can remember in the city. Like, guys would get in a fight, right? You know, everybody be hanging out on the sidewalks drinking, and you had little fire cans going, and the garbage cans, little fire, and then people get drunk, and they start getting stupid and rowdy. You know, and they'd be like, "I'm going to kick your ass, I'm going to kick your ass." These guys they're going to get into a fight. The first thing they do, and everybody would say to me, put your guns down, put your guns down. So they take their guns out, they put their guns to the side, and then they put up their hands and they fight. And then whoever got their ass kicked got their ass kicked. And when it was all said and done, they went over, they picked up their guns, and they went home. Either one went home victorious, bragging about how he whooped his ass, and the other one went home humiliated, got his ass whooped. But, you know, people knew that a gun was for an emergency situation and where your life was at threat. You didn't carry a gun because you didn't like the guy because he took your girlfriend. That, you kick his ass with your hands. If you can't kick his ass with your hands, then you deal with it. That's his life. You don't shoot the guy. Okay? And you didn't go wailing your gun around like an idiot because everybody had a gun. And if you want to act a fool with a gun, you could wind up getting shot 4 or 5 times by 5 or 6 different people because they weren't going to get shot by you because you want to act like a goddamn idiot. Now, the other thing, too, like I would like to say to the LEO, which I need, I'm just saying to you, just hear me out. You're placed in a situation every day. And I'm just giving you my street smarts here. And, you know, and the lawyers and judges, I really, you know, I don't like a lot of you people. I think you're paper brain worthless asses, but I have known some good judges, like Judge Law out of Citrus County. I had great respect for that man, because you know what? That was a man who I thought had, like, really good judgment. Judge Law was an incredible guy who could really, in my opinion, was like the only real judge I ever met. He was the only man I ever met that was really a judge that I was like, wow, that's a guy who deserves to be a judge. Now, that's somebody the public can trust. But anyway, you know, he wasn't an idiot, paper brain asshole like Tom Brink up there in Hernando County. You know, or like right now, you got Thomas Eidemann. If you knew this guy was a lawyer, you wouldn't believe this guy's a Fifth Circuit judge. You want to know the problem in the country? We elect fucking people like that as judges. Just disgraceful. But anyway, what I'm saying to you is this, right? You encounter a position where you yourself, by your position of authority, have to use violence, right? You come across some guy who's out of control. You find justifiable levels in where you got to take that guy down. Don't you think the public has that right too? I mean, if I'm out in the public and I get some irate dude and he's jumping in my face and this guy's threatening to harm me, do I not have the right to defend myself? I do have that right. And you know, there was a time in this country when I was younger, I remember, where if you had that situation and there was people around and the cops showed up and they were like, what happened? And people were like, you know, Jim was over there, Jim wasn't bothering, this guy was mouthing off, Jim tried to ignore him, Jim. And then he went over, he took a swing at Jim, Jim knocked the shit out of that guy. You know, the cops would be like, okay, well, you guys good? You going to bother Jim anymore? Or, you know, and the guy would be like, no, you know, okay, well, then we're good. And I'd be like, I'm good. I'm not looking. And they would leave. They wouldn't lock somebody up. But you see, you had the change in law, like I said, in the 70s. And then in the late 70s, like 1975, 1976, you had the change in what was known as regulation to legislation of the law itself and the imposition of that of state statute and the state attorney. The state attorney now in the state would gain the right to be able to press charges themselves without a victim. This was a big problem. This was in violation of the Constitution. It was a violation of due process. It was a violation of, innocence before guilt. It was a violation of having to have unreasonable doubt. You see, if there was no victim, how could the state press charges? But you see, we allowed this idiocy. And the reason we allowed this idiocy was for higher education to make sure that there would be jobs. And also, too, for corrupt government like the Democrats who would make sure that they can incite and manufacture and create the social issues that we are addressing today with the outrageous, out-of-control crime. You see, and the government creates these problems. You see, back then, a cop could literally weigh the matter at the moment and be like, yeah, seems okay, everybody's good, walk away. Nobody had to go to jail. And if the other guy had a problem, be like, hey, Bob, he whooped the shit out of me. Bob would be like, look, you started it. This guy said you took the first swing. He's got a right to defend himself. Don't put your hands up on people. You can stand there and argue. You got the right to freedom of speech. Argue all day. But you put your hands up, you get your ass whooped, that's on you. That's the way it would be back then. Okay, and that's the way it should be still to this day. If it was still that way, back then we didn't have the problems we have today, because you know what? People weren't as stupid as they are today. People weren't as doing idiot things like they are today, because like I say, back in the city when I was a kid, you had very few people come up in the city area on our block pulling a gun out wanting to be tough guy, because everybody had a gun. If you did some stupid shit like that, like I said, you might get shot by 5 or 6 different people, okay, including the cops, okay? That's just the way it was. So you didn't have these issues then. And you didn't have, either that too, like, or if you had somebody who maybe penned somebody up popping shit with a gun, they didn't have a gun, well, you had to worry about later on getting your ass whooped by them. Because they didn't have to worry about, and then too, like, the cops would know about it. Like, I remember Harry would know about it. Harry would go up to people and talk to people and try to resolve the issue, okay, without arresting people or taking it to court and what have you. You don't realize you as cops today have been manipulated into a corner where you're no longer really a cop. You are now, in truth, you're a revenue generator, an asset. You're just an asset to the government itself to make them money, to do their bidding, to secure the state attorney's job. That's all you are. You're no longer really like law enforcement. You're a tool for government corruption. You're a revenue driver, and you know what? You don't have to be. Chief of police, and like I say, honestly, in looking at the evaluation, I say, how can we resolve these matters? We could go back to old school. Hand the authority of all law enforcement back over to the elected official of each county, the sheriff, and have all city and county police, and the state police as well, under the jurisdictions within each district by that of the sheriffs. Take the power away from the mayors, the commissioners, and those people who are corrupting it. Take that power away from the people who are abusing it. Take that power away from the people who are dictating the cops to do unlawful, unconstitutional acts because they have the power to fire them or control their pension or control their pay or cause them, grief. Take that power away from those people corrupting it. And let the cop be the cop who's out there to protect the public and enforce the Constitution is what he's supposed to be doing. And where he doesn't have to fall into. And as well, even with the traffic thing. It's just all about revenue, and it's got to a point where like traffic issues really have gotten not worse. Really, when you look at the truth and the study of this, and this is another thing that's going on, like with the issues going on with these tyrannical scumbags that are just trying to generate revenue off of the red traffic light cameras and shit like that right now. That's another thing that's going on, and we're watching the county courts and also the district courts and the circuit courts of how these judges. There's some indictments coming down on judges, from what I understand, about knowing in the complicity of the corruption in this out of revenue. These son of a bitches need to be held and made an example of. It's just disgraceful what we see going on. These people should have never took the position of judge if they were going to be criminal in their position. And believe me, on the indictments for the sentencing, and what I'm hearing is coming down, they all deserve what they get. Good pieces of shit. All of you are pieces of shit. Anybody who's a criminal element within that of entrusted government by that of the American people, if you act criminal, you're a piece of shit. Okay, but that's my opinion. But anyway, back to the point of what I'm saying is, you should have laws that are like in line to what America was founded on. When I studied world history, culture, and our Constitution, and I want to know my place as an American, like they say, ignorance of the law is no excuse. I have the reasonable common sense, I believe, to understand my place as an American and what the law is. And in studying the law of what I see what our founders and what they wanted, before we allowed the British administration of rules to step into this, before we allowed that of like foreign interests to step into this and start to dictate what our laws would be, it was the intent of our founders that our law should be such as that of what is self-evident, to protect the rights self-evident of the people. Meaning that, you know, let's say, like, for instance, we do have this in a sense, we have it, like, murder is illegal, right? If you kill somebody just simply because you're angry at them and you don't like them, that's murder. You're going to go to jail for life. But now if somebody's running at you with an axe and you kill them, well, that law doesn't apply in the same way now. Now you killed them, it's self-defense because they were trying to kill you. You see how the same law has two different faces. And they're both on the premises of self-evident, right? Everybody has a right self-evident to life, as our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence declares, right? You have the right to life. You have the right to the pursuit of liberty and happiness, right? So the law should protect you in those rights. Also, too, the law in original foundings, and what's many cases by our so-called Supreme Court, which today is a disgrace, but there was a time where it had integrity, and there was cases and precedents handed down to where you had to have intent. You see, for instance, like right now, I'll give you an example of something that many of the LEO agree with on this, and we're looking at it because it creates a hostility and a thing of the public against the police. Let's say you have a guy who has a car accident, right? And this is one time a fact that the way I'm saying this is the way it used to be. They have a car accident, right? Now, when the cops would show up, they would make a report on it, whatever, and that's it. They leave. Nobody gets a ticket. Nobody has a problem. And the reason why is because it would be self-evident that it was probably very unlikely that either one of them got up in the morning and premeditated that accident. It was an accident. That's why they call it an accident. Nobody had intent for it to happen. Where there's no premeditative intent, there's no crime. You understand? Accidents happen. You don't ticket a person because of an accident. Accidents happen. You could say, and I understand that some people want to say, like, you get the cop who is the Gestapo, like, oh, you know what, there was somewhere along the line right there was a choice been made, and that person knew he went over a certain point where, you know, shut the hell up, really, get real. Get real. Nobody got up in the morning and decided they want to go out and wreck their car and crash into somebody. This should be self-evident. And these are the kind of things that create the hostility, but it's all about revenue. It's all out of revenue, and you know, just there's a domino effect with legislation and people involved with insurance and the automobile industry, and as well people involved with the motor vehicle industry and lawyers where they get their money made off of defending these people off these stupid, incredibly stupid incidents of what law enforcement is now being used for as revenue generators, and that of pretty much social structure engineers is what the law enforcement is being used right there. They're trying to use law enforcement to structure and engineer society to be a certain way that the government wants them to be in complicitness with the government's authority and power that it is now self-endowing on itself and has not been consented through the Constitution. The cops are now enforcing these things. You see, this is where it starts with small little things like these, and then it gets to bigger things. And then you, right now, the cops are out there, and like when you get to the Second Amendment, you're violating people's rights, a right that's inherent in them by God of the Constitution that you took an oath to uphold and defend. You're out there right now enforcing rights that infringe a right that says shall not be infringed. And you're doing it by the authority of the government, not the Constitution. And you're enforcing it and acting and imposing these violations upon the citizens of the United States and depriving them their constitutional God-given right by the authority of the government. You're in violation of in contempt of your own oath to office, and you don't even realize it because you don't read the Constitution. You don't give a shit. You're just a power-drunk idiot. And that's how far it goes. You see, the government now is using you as like Gestapo, and they got you out there doing that, where you're actually right now out violating constitutional rights of people. The government right now is literally manipulating things like Facebook, YouTube, social media networks like Twitter and what have you, because these government officials are calling up, and then these billionaires and millionaires that own these, not only are they complicit, stupid idiots themselves that don't even know, you know, it's amazing when you look at somebody like Mark Zuckerberg, right? His whole entire life is structured around entrepreneurship of capitalism in the Republic of the United States, but yet the goddamn idiot's a Democrat. Really? Really? How stupid are you, Mark Zuckerberg? But anyway, and then two, he's very complicit because you can tell by him the ego trip and where he gets to talk to like Joe Biden, he gets to talk to like Maxine Waters and the Congress people, like, because he's so important because he's a billionaire. Let me tell you something. Being a billionaire doesn't mean you're smart. Mark Zuckerberg had a product that millions of people, that's all that makes you rich. When you have a niche that millions of people want and grasp onto, you're going to be rich no matter who you are, no matter what idiot you are. You don't have to be very smart. The people behind Mark Zuckerberg, who built the networks, who built the business establishment, who built the foundation of the widespread worldwide network and whatever with his business, they're the smart people. Mark Zuckerberg's just the lucky guy who came up with an idea that niched all these millions of people. It doesn't mean he's smart. And it's pretty clear he's not smart. Because I've watched the man, I've listened to the man, and I'm going to tell you what. You know, he's not stupid. He could be smart. He has good aptitude. He has good reasonable ability to be smart, but he chooses not to because he's egotistical and he believes everything without fact-checking it himself. He like him, I seen him in his interview with Fauci, the guy with the COVID, the so-called expert on COVID disease control right here, the idiot we're all listening to that wears 2 masks walking around like we had recently to Rand Paul say, this guy's just doing it for theater, and I believe Rand Paul, he's right, he's just doing it for theater, he's an idiot. And then all these people that claim to be experts, let me tell you something, you can't be experts. Anybody with reasonable common sense knows you're not experts. Because you know what? How much experience have you had with these kind of situations? 3? Really? You're an expert? You don't know what the hell you're doing. You're just grasping at straws and making suggestions, randomly not knowing what the results are going to be and hoping it all turns out good. Just like any other person could do. You're not an expert. You're just an idiot who can't accept your reality. That's what it is. It's just sad. It's just sad when you got people in such expert positions or professional positions being entrusted that just can't accept the reality of that. You know what? It's okay not to know what you're doing and say you don't know what you're doing, but don't lie to people and do stupid shit that just makes things worse. That's just idiocy, okay? And it's so getting old in this country. It's just getting so old. But this is the way that foreign totalitarian governments work, and this is what the Democrats understand. And the Democrats, like we say, and we see, they're in line with that of foreign totalitarian regimes like the Islamic Muslims and China. We know Joe Biden's in China's pocket. His son's in Joe Biden. I have a video I was going to put up, but I haven't done it, but I wish I did. Shows him with his little crack whore smoking crack. I have that video. But, it's like I say, we forgot all about these things. But anyway, to me, being an American, too, is being proud. I'm a proud American. I've had my encounters with law enforcement. I know LEO. I know some very good LEO that are, customer of mine I've known for years. I know some good cops and good LEO I've met through the years in my own confrontations with law enforcement and authorities of government when I've taken my positions and judges didn't like it and threw me in contempt and what have you and had me arrested, whatever. I've met good cops. I've met bad cops. I know cops that while I'm standing there handcuffed, you can tell these guys shouldn't be. And luckily with me, I did know some good cops in higher positions got it dealt with. Where I told them what happened and they literally addressed the issue. That's an uncommon thing that I'm sure most don't have. Like I say, I was able to do that because I knew somebody. It shouldn't be that way. Those of authority positions should be testing their own to make sure they're not corrupt. They're not overreaching and overbearing in their authority. And if they are, they should be firing them. Cleaning shit up. You want the public to trust you, earn that trust. You want the public to trust you, respect the public, and understand that it's the public who gives you your authority and powers. And don't abuse those powers, especially on the people giving it to you. Just get real. If you take an oath to a constitution, which is the primary foundation of the job that gives you the authority of what it is you're going to do, know the goddamn Constitution. Read it. Take the time to be an American. Stop being a fake. Be real. Be real. That's all I'm saying. I know it's been a long video. These are the things I want to touch on real quick and talk about. And real quick, I want to go back. I just want to touch on something here. We'll go back to this. This is a movie that was made by Kirk Cameron called Monumental. We're up by the 1900s. In my last video, I mentioned this because it's in that time frame of the history I was doing. We'll be going into I'll be doing the video in the 1900s forward up to 1915. As soon as I get time. Apologize to everybody who's been waiting for it. But the monument of what it is this monument here. And this monument is a blueprint left to us by our founders if we should ever lose our way. The Democrats won't like this monument because it speaks of liberty, freedom, religion, God, and our true morals and values as American people. But I would suggest to everybody, this is a very good movie. If you got Netflix or something like that, you can get it. Or like here, I'll include a link where you can actually buy it for $9.95. Or you might be able to find a place online. It's called Monumental, the movie by Kirk Cameron. Very, very good movie about good American history. And it's about a monument I think is very important to all Americans that we need to know about. And the reason why I would say that too, I'm just going to leave off with this, God, right? The thing I think for the majority of the issues and problems we face in America is we've removed God from everything. I mean, it's disgraceful. And the Democrats are the main primary cause of all the push for this removal of God and everything. And that's because they're allied with a godless people, you know, and they themselves are a godless, evil, disgusting, perverted, queer people, you know, and that's pretty evident. I can't believe how this minority of these sick, demented people are the ones right now controlling our country. But the other thing of the principles with the values of this right here is to understand something that most don't understand. And I'll argue this with any lawyer or legal scholar that wants to argue it. I would love to have a debate with somebody who actually claims to have a brain, and we could review these things. But you know, I've had this thing where I've spoken to a few lawyers. I've had this thing where I've done it out in public as my own thing, and I would say to a lawyer, "You do know the Constitution was ratified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, right?" And they're like, "No, it wasn't. There's nothing in the Constitution mentioning God. The Declaration, the only thing in the Constitution mentioning God is you know, First Amendment right of protection of church and freedom of religion. Other than that, there's nowhere in the Constitution is mentioned anything of Christianity, Jesus Christ." They'll say that, and I let them ramble their stupidity, their ignorance, because it proves my point about what a paper brain idiot is, you know. And but I've had some, you know, they say to me, "Really, Jim?" Some that know me, they'll be like, "Really, Jim?" Because they know I wouldn't say something like that unless I knew for a fact I could back it up, and they won't question it. They're just like, "Well, can you show me?" And they're humble. They want to learn. There's good lawyers and there's scumbag majority. I'm sorry, they're scumbag losers, no good, disgraceful, inhumane people that don't give a shit about nobody but themselves. And you know what? If we were to get back to the way things were too, you didn't used to have those kind of lawyers in the old days neither. Because you know what? When you had a lawyer that was an instigating, no good piece of shit, self-serving, ungrateful, undeserving American disgrace, you could bitch slap him. And you put them right back into reality. They would learn respect for people, okay? And, you know, sometimes, I'm sorry, a bitch slap is necessary. Like I was saying prior, you know, you got the cops, you guys wind up in positions, you got to use force. You don't think the people do? And then, too, like I was saying real quick, I'm just going to say to all the judges, lawyers that are of integrity, and the cops themselves that are of integrity and morals and values of American principles, understand this. Everything you deal with, you complain about. Because I hear this. I hear it from the state attorneys, I hear it from the cops, I hear it from the judges, what we see in the courtroom, what we deal with every day. Listen, you do that 8 hours a day as a cop. The people in that community, they deal with that shit 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, they live it. They know it just as well, if not better than you, trust me. They're dealing with the shit. And there's good moral people among those communities that are dealing with the things you fear, the things you face, day in and day out. And when you're not there, they're dealing with it still. They deal with it. They live with it. It's their life. It's what their whole world is. They know it. Okay? You're a judge. You deal with it in the courtroom. You're a state attorney. You deal with it case by case as it comes in on paper. The people of the communities that are affected directly by it or victim of it, they're dealing with it 24/7, 365 days a year in the real world with it, not on paper. They're living it. They're dealing it. They're confronting the very people that come before you day in and day out in the streets. And the scary thing about it is, and I know this from growing up in Newark, and I know this from city life when I was younger, okay? If you have a criminal that comes into you, and you, with this disgusting law, the way the justice system is turned into this revolving door of idiocy, you know, and you wonder what you make it so hard for the cops, because nobody's going to be compliant with the cops. Nobody's going to talk about the bad guy in their neighborhood with the cops, because you know what? The cops maybe can arrest it off of somebody saying, "Hey, look, that's the guy causing the problem." The cops go and arrest him. They come before you, the state attorney. They get into this Mickey Mouse goddamn courtroom system you got going on of a revolving door, and the judge just releases him back out. And then what happens? He goes and puts a bullet in the head of the guy who told about him. You see, that's what happens to rats. They say, like, snitches get stitches, you know, that kind of deal there. But you do have some situations where the criminal element is so far out of control it involves organized crime that's very big right now, and it's going on. And many of the cities right now, the women are subject to being raped, beat, murdered, pretty much intoxicated up with drugs and addicted to drugs and prostituted out like freaking, you know, just intangible objects that these people doing this inhumane, and they're getting away with it because the government itself is involved to pay off the scams. The money that's involved is disgraceful. What's going on? It's at a point right now, it's pandemic. That's the pandemic in this country. The pandemic in this country is governments not wanting to take accountability for itself. Because let me tell you something. Everything that's happening right now in America is happening because of you, the government. You're the cause of it. You're the one who made the laws that make it all manufactured to be the way it is right now. You're the one who gives the authority to the cops to make the situations the way it is right now. You're the one that creates the policies and implement the public policy of the counties, the states, and whatever to what the people are being subject to that are so right now disgruntled and disorganized and out of control with chaos. You're the cause of it. You. And you refuse to take responsibility for that. Now the Democrats, they know they're the cause. They're intentionally manufacturing this. But for the Republicans, there's no excuse. Those and the true Americans, it's sad because they're a minority. Look at poor little Marguerite Green. That's like one of the only ones right now who I see and I say, God, I can't believe, like with Trump, out of all the people that came into office with Trump, there's only one real American. Marguerite Green, that's it. That's all I see, one real American out of all the elected. And you know what? Now I do like Kim Klacik. I believe she was a real American, but the only problem is her election was stolen just like Donald Trump's. She was corruptly beat out of Baltimore. She should have took it because you know what? In talking with people on the street and in the networks right now across the states, all the people in Baltimore voted for Kim Klacik. They didn't vote for that freaking criminal scumbag they got in there right now. And he stole that election. The Democrats gave it to him because he's a complicit with them. And the last thing they wanted was Kim Klacik because she would have straightened shit out. She'd have made shit right in Baltimore. And if Baltimore would have elected her as a Republican, boy, you people would have been a lot better off. You'd have seen a lot better for your kids. Your daughters wouldn't wind up prostitutes. Your sons wouldn't wind up freaking drug dealers at the threat of being shot by these goddamn crazy cops who are just handed the authority to get away with whatever they want in those kind of places. You really, and I know you didn't elect it. You didn't elect that guy, so it's not even the people's fault. It's the corruption's fault. That's how bad it is. It's just that it's that bad. Where a good person like Kim Klacik can't even get in position of power to actually make the change that needs to be changed because the system's so corrupt, it's so criminal, and it's so controlled right now like a banana republic. It's lost. It's a lost cause. And I'm gonna tell you right now. Either we, the real American people, wake up and face this reality and see it for what it is and understand this. I'm telling you right now, between 33 states, there's 4.7 million militia willing to do the job that needs to be done. And it's coming one way or the other. But the people, you know what? If we could get the authorities involved, and we have a lot of the authorities already. We have a lot of sheriffs. We have a lot of National Guard, active duty military in all different branches, and a lot of veterans from all different walks of life, from police, from state police to sheriffs to you name it, and we just have everyday great, good, all God-loving and God-fearing great Americans. And you know what, though? We could use all the support we can from the American people and out of the current right now who are good and moral. You know, it all comes down to the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Unity is the key. Donald Trump would say, and I've seen some things that Donald Trump said that are so true, the Democrats have one thing that the majority right now of the population of true Americans don't have. Unity. Unity and loyalty. When are we, the American people, and the people like me who are thinking like me and know what I'm talking about, when are we going to get together and unify and honorably stand with each other and say enough? How long are we going to wait? How many Americans got to die? How far does our posterity have to be deprived? Did our founders do that to us? We were given a great nation, and America's always been great. And we could always be a proud people. And understand, too, because I understand right now, from the proud thing of America, to have the rumor going around about how we're falling in our pride. Listen, the pride of America, and the truth is what I know it from our founders and everything, was never in ourselves as a selfish intent. Our pride was that we were so righteous of a people and upright with God that God blessed us to be the great country we are. Our pride was in that, not selfish. We were proud that God found us so worthy to bless us so greatly. That's where our pride. Our pride was never in the fall of ourselves of selfish intent. Our pride is pride to be an American was that God loves the people of this country no matter what their foreign ideology or their foreign nationalism is or their foreign culture was. It was that the people who unified as the American people of one people of all equal. we're so dedicated to the cause of the laws of nature by nature's God and the principles and values of God that God blessed us this greatly to be such the great nation we were. That we take pride in. So I just want to clear that up. So with that, I guess I'm done. That's about what I want to say. It's been a long rant. If you like the video, you can like it. I ask that everybody please start liking these things. The reason I say like them, because if you notice, like on my YouTube channel, you go there's only certain videos that are up front. Then the videos that are getting viewed or somebody hit a like on, and that's what happens. You see, I'm not asking you to like it because I want to be popular. I'm going to do these if I'm popular or I'm not popular. I'm going to do them just for the purpose of posterity, so they're there for my grandson to watch, okay, and my granddaughter and whoever else in my family wants to watch it. It's for that, of my posterity, directly to my family and my friends and my customers and people who find value in what I'm saying and if they like them. But I say, like it, make a little comment, Jim, you're an idiot, whatever, I don't really care, because those things actually cause ranking. And ranking causes exposure, meaning that the more likes it gets, or the more, you don't have to like it, just acknowledge it, you know? Just acknowledge, wow, that was okay, or, yeah, okay, cool, a little comment. What it does is it keeps it visible. And if you don't, if it gets no likes and it gets no comments, it gets archived. It gets like, or if I'm saying archived, or whatever that is. It gets put away out of sight, so nobody gets to see it unless they search for it, unless it gets given to them, unless they go digging for it. So to keep these things in sight, just like them or give a small comment, and so that they stay visible for any other people who may come across the channel, so that if you feel the videos are important and you found it interesting, you thought it had information that you were grateful to get from it. I'm hoping that what I say and what I do, somebody's finding worthy, you know. And if you do, don't you want others to know it? If you felt it helped make you a better American, and I'm not saying I'm Joe America, I try to be a better American every day. I know God loves me. I love God. I walk with God. I try to walk with integrity, truth. That's the most important thing to me is the truth, because one day I'm going to die, and the only thing real I get to take with me in this world is the memories of truth. Okay, because lies, they don't exist. They're not real, and nothing of them has any substance. I know. Only thing I care about is the truth. I want the truth. Okay, and I serve a God of truth. I love my God. My God is the God of truth. America should be a nation of integrity and truth. And that's the other thing. We have very little value for truth. But boy, we sure have a lot of leadway for liars, don't we? That's another thing we need to address in this country. But anyway, with that said, you know, like, comment, share, do whatever you want with it. Just do something with it so it stays visible. Thank you all for watching my video and taking the time. Have a God bless day. God bless America. God bless every true American. And hopefully soon, the true Americans of this nation will be taking their place to make sure America gets put back on track. Like I say right now, understand, for all law enforcement, the reason I'm reaching out to you and all that are integrity within it of government is understand, when that move is made, we're going to be very vulnerable. And it puts us in a very vulnerable state with that of our world enemies. Okay, and let me tell you something, one big difference for the military guys and those of higher ups to understand something, and this is not just only my own wisdom, this is from wisdom being shared and debated with that of former veterans and people who are I consider very smart, who have very good common sense that when they speak I pay very close attention to. You know, there's a big difference between World War I, World War II, and what's coming. In World War I, as we know, Australia was an armed people, okay, and they were allied with us, okay. Germany, you know, was not, and you know, say in World War II, but like I say, Australia was a very reckoning force, okay, and even Britain, Great Britain, you know, it had an armed society during those older days, and where, you know, the people and the military and the fighting spirit was more stronger and greater. We've lost Australia as an armed people, and their military might is not as great as it once was. We don't have many strong allies to stand with us right now. Russia, we have. But I believe Russia is a nationalist nation that's going to stand with America no matter what. Because I do believe that even in Putin's own words, and some things he has said, and that of what the progression has been for Russia moving forward in the last several decades, or actually the 5 decades since the time of Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan, they are looking for a position to be as liberated and free as America, but in a more secured way, that it would be ensured that the government, because they see our own government and the corruption, and they're waiting for us to correct that, and I believe we would gain Russia as an ally. I really do. And I believe the Chinese people are in position right now to take a position, and they will stand with that of the American principles and founding values of what they have come to understand true Americanism is. And as well, we've lost the ally of Iran in 1978 because of Democrat Jimmy Carter. Iran is, but we still have millions of people in Iran who remember what it was like to be a constitutional free republic from when they were allied back before 1978 to America, and they were considered mini America. Those people I know for a fact from world conversation and world debate and forums, and what's called the black webs, and speaking with people in countries which, there are secret connections of ways for people to talk. These people are all willing to put their life on the line for that vision and that hope of what America has given the world, and all its greatness is what it's been. Donald Trump inspired a lot of that again, gave a lot of faith to that of the Iranian people and the Chinese people, and even the North Korean people. We can have a lot of great change coming in this world, or we could be being set back thousands of years. It's really up to us. So understand what's at stake. It's got to be played out right. We don't have, and we're hoping, like I say, it has to be figured out among those who are on board where Russia stands and what way this can be done in the best way for all of humanity and all the world. So until that's figured out, we got to deal with this shit show with Joe Biden. So till then, I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Thank you all for watching my video. God bless you all. God bless America. God loves us. Trust me, I got to have faith in God. Have a great day.